Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag? You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look, no plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
Let's all properly recycle. Let's all properly recycle. Let's all properly recycle. Leave out the plastic bags.
You may think plastic bags can be recycled curbside, but they can't. When you put recyclables in a plastic bag, it gets tangled in the sorting machine and ruins recycling. Let's all properly recycle.
Let's all properly recycle. Let's all properly recycle. Let's all properly recycle. Leave out the plastic bags.
Hey, would you do me a favor? Grab your phone or smart device and open up that camera. Then point it right here at the QR code. Do you have it? I'll wait a second. When you see the link pop up on your screen, give it a tap. You ready? Boom! Welcome to the Hillsborough County official YouTube channel. We've got all sorts of videos here, all about what makes our community such an awesome place. From local events and community highlights to what's in the perfect Cuban sandwich. We've got it all. We're always adding new things, so while you're here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a new video. Here's that QR code again, just in case you missed it. Go ahead and check it out. Ooh. This must have fallen out of that video. This really is the perfect Cuban sandwich.
These are the jobs you may not see every day, but just know we're working hard to make Hillsborough County a better place to live, work, and play. Subscribe to our YouTube page for more great county-related videos, only on HTV.
Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission, the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Welcome to the January 13th, 2025 public hearing of the Planning Commission on Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. For those attending in person and wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. To minimize feedback in the audio, all online participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should unmute themselves to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. Please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for the local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and discussion, a vote will be taken. To all participants, please note that tonight's hearing concerns proposed changes to the comprehensive plan. Presentations should not include matters related to zoning applications and site plans that are not before the commission. Zoning conditions are not relevant to plan amendments and may not be considered by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's purview in making a recommendation is limited to consistency or inconsistency with the comprehensive plan. With that, I'd like to ask the clerk to please go ahead and call roll.
Bowden.
Here.
Buzza.
Here.
Cardenas.
Here.
Kona.
Here.
Fernandez. Kress. Lauk. Soria. Sieben. Joseph.
Here.
Orton.
Here.
Rodriguez. You have a quorum, sir.
Thank you. All right. Our first agenda item up is 2A HC CPA 23-15, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Energy Industrial Park, Secondary Uses, and the presenter is Melissa Leinhard.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff. I'm here tonight to present to you HCCPA 2315, which is, as noted on the agenda, the Energy Industrial Park Secondary Uses Plan Amendment. This is a privately initiated text amendment to one geographical area of the county. Specifically, this is a 3,000-acre piece of land south of State Road 60. The applicant is requesting to modify existing language under the Energy Industrial Park section of the future land use element that pertains to this area. This request was originally part of the April 2024 cycle of plan amendments. It is now part of the October cycle. The site is located in the urban service area, and it's not located within the limits of a community plan. The site is bordered generally by State Road 60 to the north, Dover Road to the west, Turkey Creek Road to the east, and Durant Road to the south. The Energy Industrial Park Future Land Use category is a unique category in that it applies to a select geographical area of unincorporated Hillsborough County. This category, along with the text that supports the category's vision and contains the requirements for the Energy Industrial Park, that was created through a privately initiated text amendment back in 2010. And the policies were written at that time based on the topography of the site, as well as the available energy producing technology at that time. In 2022, there was also a privately initiated text amendment that modified the language for one energy producing output rather than the two that was originally approved, so long as the output was doubled to achieve the vision of the energy industrial park, and that amendment was approved and is in effect today. This is one of two energy industrial park privately initiated amendments in the October cycle. So I wanted to avoid some confusion and have this slide to clear things up a little bit. HCCPA 24-06 is a separate amendment. We are not hearing that this evening. That item is scheduled to be heard by you all next month at the February Planning Commission public hearing. Both this amendment, which is 2315 and 2406 that I just mentioned, they affect the same site, but the request each have different applicants and property owners. The amendments affect the entire property because it is a text amendment for the Energy Industrial Park Future Land Use category. The same Planning Commission planner, me, is reviewing both of these items. And then we've also worked in close collaboration with the reviewing agencies for each amendment as well. Regarding the impacts, the current language states that all industrial, office, and commercial uses are limited to a 700-acre piece in the northwestern portion of the site. That's along State Road 60. Commercial uses are not permitted along State Road 60 east of Turkey Creek as the language is written and adopted today. And by that, I mean the creek itself, not Turkey Creek Road, which is located further eastward. The proposed language would remove the words northwest and replace that with north and delete along State Road 60 in the 700-acre language that I just described above. It would also allow for retail and commercial uses east of Turkey Creek by replacing the language with beyond 1/2 mile of Turkey Creek. This is a change from the briefing presentation that I gave last month. I have a graphic on the next slide, and I'll go into that a little bit more deeply then. This is the graphic that I was mentioning. So this slide shows the entire Energy Industrial Park site on the left. And then in the briefing presentation, I showed a similar slide explaining that the applicant was requesting to utilize a folio as the eastern boundary of where new commercial could be located. That's represented by the red outline. That's the folio that I presented during the briefing time. The current language says that commercial may not be located east of Turkey Creek. Again, the creek, not the road. Based upon comments made by the planning commissioners last month at the meeting and some other public testimony, the applicant then revised the proposed language to include a distance rather than a folio. Again, the folio that was presented last month is outlined in red. The idea behind this is that a distance is a hard number that provides some predictability and transparency, while a folio can increase or decrease in size and could otherwise change. The graphic on the right shows the current boundary of the creek with the blue line, that kind of squiggly line there, and then I marked the 1/2 mile distance that the applicant is now proposing. So again, previously it was this entire folio was the limit, so this line here, and now they're asking to go a little bit eastward of that just to give some clarity and some transparency to that language. This amendment was transmitted out for agency review. There are no objections, but there were some agency comments of note. The Environmental Protection Commission noted that the Sydney Mine Sludge Pond Superfund site was located in the Energy Industrial Park area, and that any proposed use or alterations within that area and perhaps even adjacent to the ponds must be approved through the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. The Office of Emergency Management noted that this amendment aligns well with the current goal of the local mitigation plan that they have. And Development Services noted that the zoning will need to be amended to accommodate proposed changes if they are approved. And then the Hillsborough County Environmental Services Division noted that there's a declaration of restrictive covenant, or an RC, for the Sydney Mine Superfund site that restricts certain uses on the property. They also noted that there are conditions to reduce or limit the risk of exposure to groundwater contaminants to the users of the property, and the applicant must submit a floodplain map that is consistent with FEMA's 100-year floodplain map and surface water protection resource map. Hillsborough County's Community Infrastructure Planning Department, they noted that absent specific information on specific uses, the traffic impacts could not be fully measured at this time. Planning Commission has found the proposed revisions consistent with the following objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. With regard to future land use element policy 1.4, that relates to compatibility. The proposed changes would still concentrate the most intensive commercial development along State Road 60's corridor, which is consistent with the compatibility policies in the plan. Regarding the neighborhood protection policies that modify Objective 16 that are noted on this slide, notably keeping the most intensive development along State Road 60, as I mentioned, that's consistent with policy direction and future land use element policy 16.5, which calls for developments of higher intensity that are located adjacent to established neighborhoods be restricted to collectors and arterials and to locations that are external to those neighborhoods. The proposed modifications would also be consistent with this policy direction, as the proposed language would focus the most intensive commercial and industrial uses along State Road 60, which is an arterial roadway. Regarding Energy Industrial Park's goal overall and policy 59.11, the addition of the language beyond 1/2 mile in policy 59.11 number 8 would clearly specify a limit to those more intensive uses traveling eastward through the site. This would also limit commercial and industrial uses along State Road 60 to the area west of the limit of 1/2 mile to the east of Turkey Creek. I know that sounds very difficult, but the graphic hopefully helped understand that, and I can flip back to that if anyone needs it. The existing language also limits commercial and industrial uses east of Turkey Creek itself, and the newly proposed modification would increase that area by 1/2 mile traveling eastward. The modification provides for some flexibility for future development, while also being sensitive to the adjacent residential uses both to the east and the west. And that being said, the Planning Commission staff recommendation is one of consistent for HCCPA 23-15, and that is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. That concludes my presentation. I'm here for any questions that you may have.
Thank you. That was publicly initiated, right? Privately? Okay.
Private.
Does the applicant have a presentation? Sorry.
The applicant does have one.
Good evening, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson, representing the applicant this evening. We represent the property owner that owns the easternmost part of the site. We do have a brief presentation for you. We don't want to be duplicative of Melissa's excellent presentation. I think she did a really good job of taking something really complicated and making it understandable, and so we do appreciate that. And with that, I'd like to introduce Chris McNeil, who's our project engineer.
Good evening, Commission. Chris McNeil with McNeil Engineering. Appreciate your time tonight, and so great to be back with you again after having time to work on this project with staff and with several others to be able to bring it to what it is today. So appreciate your time. So as Cammie had mentioned, there's two main property owners, and we are representing the Turkey Creek Preserve owner, which is on the east side, but this kind of gives you a picture of where those separations are. This is a image of the approved site plan. I know you mentioned that we're not talking about any proposed site plans tonight, but I do want to mention this one because this particular text amendment is so intricately tied to the general site plan. But this is the current general site plan that was approved back in October 2010, which is referenced in the text, or a lot of the elements are as well. As staff did so well in mentioning the request for the text amendment, this is just a little bit breakdown of exactly really the same thing. The last three are related to the site reference, and the first one is just a definition for a term that was previously a little bit confusing to us and to staff, and so after some discussion we worked on that and came to a solution. The second one references that previously approved text amendment, which provides some clarification of that. And then the third one allows for the energy portion requirement of the text to be split between the property owners. This again is not a request for residential uses. This is not part of this text amendment request. So with the first one, just to give you dive in a little bit more with the request for ancillary and how that came about with the 10% of the total gross acreage that was pulled from the approved general site plan. Staff had agreed with that direction, and that gives everyone some direction on what that term would mean. And it's there's the image there for you to see where that came from. The next one about the having development rights and responsibilities, basically to break down the opportunity of those required energy components to be able to have them identified with the property owners and proportionately shared there. That gives that the opportunity. The third one here, this is the energy use option that just basically gives that wording to be able to allow the two energy use option, not only for the industrial warehouse, but it just for also the retail and office uses that was previously approved in 2021. I believe that was should have been there before, but wasn't. So that's just a clarification there. And then the last three that are associated with the site as well. This shows just an image of the currently approved zoning plan, the site plan, as well as the proposed that is currently being done simultaneously, and gives you a better picture just with some color there of where the office and commercial uses are allowed currently up on the north side in those pockets A, and the request for it to be half mile east of the creek, which is in green, and then also would allow the request for industrial warehouse to be in the blue from existing and proposed as well. With any questions that Cammie and I might be able to answer, that concludes our presentation. So.
Cammie Corbett again for the record. And so just big picture, we have modified this request as to limit it to what we really need. The request was really much more aggressive before. We've now really allocated time and resources to find out what part of the land is developable and what's not, and that's why we're changing where the uses can be located. They didn't have that information. The other piece that we're doing is, as you all heard at the last time and at the briefing, this was all originally contemplated to be under one ownership. There were no policy language to allocate for the fact that there are two property owners, and there have been two property owners since immediately after this was approved. And so this adds in practical language that allows the property owners to allocate the responsibilities for the plan amendment obligations at the PD stage. So that's what we're facilitating. And again, defining undefined terms such as the term ancillary, we now know that that means 10% of the total commercial. And there are just a lot of things, as discussed at the briefing, that went along with this plan amendment, went back when it was approved, that just weren't contemplated. And so we've limited the changes to what is absolutely necessary to enable this property owner to develop his property. And with that, we'd respectfully request your approval and here to answer any questions.
All right, thank you. Now for the public comment, we had a few people sign up for this one. I'm going to check the online ones before the in-person ones just to see, because there's less people online. Is Brady Harris on the line? Nope.
Not on the line.
Nope. What about Brian Bocor?
Brian is not online.
Okay, Christina Gatewood?
Christina is not online.
Michael Gatewood.
Michael is not online.
And last but not least, Penny Martin.
Penny Martin is not online.
Okay, all right. We will go to the long list of... All right, well, what were the names? Penny Martin? I'll come back and check at the end. Hopefully they gotten on by then. Stanley Harris. All right, and we'll move to the people who are here. Hopefully those HTV will work on that, whatever's going on. We got plenty of people here, though, so we'll have a bit of time. I'd like to remind everyone, 3 minutes per person, right? No trading time. Everyone gets 3 minutes. Stick to your 3 minutes, and we'll get through all of this. All right, so we will start off with George Neiman. George Neiman.
Good evening, George Neiman. I live at right next to Ground Zero, Dover Woods, and I'm part of a neighborhood coalition called Fix Hillsborough, and we're opposing any changes to the plan. And we submitted, when they've done revisions, but last October, we appeared and we had sent our full evaluation of the plan, and we found over 30 inconsistencies. We sent it to all of you, and no one ever said anything to me. But when I talked to the staff, they said it doesn't count what citizens say is inconsistent because we're not certified. Well, I'm highly educated, and it doesn't take half a brain to see when things are not being complied with. So let me talk about this. The energy requirement is being missed. And not was said about this in the readout you just got, but the energy requirement is sort of being skipped. And I brought this up to staff and I said, hold on, it was supposed to be energy. I've been at all the meetings in 2009 and 2010. I was at all the meetings. I saw the presentations that the owners gave, and they presented this glorious picture of alternative energy. We're going to help the county grow. Well, that's great. Let's see it happen. But they don't want to do the energy now. So now we're seeing a vague response of what are they going to build? Are they going to build a real energy plant and be a supplier? Or are they going to put solar panels on the roofs of retail strip malls and say, look, we're an energy plant? Well, I have panels on my roof to heat my pool. I am not an energy plant. And I think they're insinuating that they're going to build the energy, but we really don't have that guarantee. And if you agree to let them do it concurrently with building the commercial industrial, you will have no recourse if they never follow through and end up building a real energy plant. But right now, I don't see any plan to build a real energy source. And when I talked to staff about it, they said, well, the plan isn't clear. What? If the plan is not clear, I know that the intent of all the previous commissions, both planning and BOCC, was to build an alternative energy plant to help the county grow. And if you don't know that it's in the plan, then let's get it in the plan. Let's put this on hold and get back to the county commission and tell them that we don't have a plan set.
Thank you, sir. All right.
And I'm turning in petitions, 1,000, over 1,000. I'm turning this in soft copy. It's not that I don't trust you, but I don't trust you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Yvette Neiman and Susie Watts also, if Susie Watts could start to make her way.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Yvette Neiman, and I live in Dover, so I live right next to Ground Zero, AKA the Energy Industrial Park. I'm against this amendment in its entirety. It's inconsistent with Hillsborough's comprehensive plan in numerous ways. I'd like to focus on a few of the inconsistencies. The applicant's revised amendment still doesn't satisfy the energy plant creation. It doesn't truly support long-term economic viability. Many of the jobs it creates will be temporary. The long-term employment, for the most part, will be comprised of low-paying jobs. The EIP as a work site may create health risks from exposure to contaminants and radiation for those that work there. The commercial industrial development will create pollution since there is almost no public transportation to that workforce. It will create significant additional vehicular traffic. It's inconsistent with Mobility Goal 5, and Objective 5.3 will throw off the balance in the need for single occupant vehicles versus using public transportation options. It will create sprawl, and it doesn't matter if the EIP was artificially designated as urban. It's not urban and doesn't have the infrastructure. It will create an enclave. As such, it will create sprawl. The applicant has no way to mitigate the negative impacts on our transportation network. After this amendment was found inconsistent back in October of last year, the applicant submitted a revision. The revision did not mitigate any of the inconsistencies that residents found at that time. Common sense dictates a finding of inconsistency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, and
Oop.
this is a sample of the water found. Actually, one of our,
Yeah.
sorry. This is a sample of water that was taken. Actually, one of our speakers, Stanley Harris, lives on the property right near there. And this is what kind of water is in there.
Thank you. All right, next up, Susie Watts.
Hello, I'm Susie Watts. Thanks for welcoming me. I am president of the Bloomingdale Neighborhood Association. I represent 23,000 of our neighbors. I've been here since '91. We oppose the amendment. It's been discussed at many of our board meetings over the last year, and I have a copy of our board meeting minutes that notes our opposition. This amendment is opposed to the impact on infrastructure, health concerns, integrity, and fiscal responsibility. Integrity means something. The current owners of the land bought the land knowing it was for an industrial energy park. That's what they bought. Now they want to not honor that, and I feel that they have a right to sell their property if it's not meeting their needs. But what they bought is what they got. To come back and try and change it is not inconsistent. Let's cast integrity aside. Let's talk about dollars and cents. The planned alternative energy is needed to power our community. Hillsborough County is expected to grow by 39% by 2050. An alternative energy park will provide a hardening of our energy system by having yet another type of energy. If one gets out, maybe another one will still be able to work. As we saw last year, extreme weather events are taxing our power system. Tampa Electric, as you know, keeps raising our rents. Supply and demand, which is forever dictates everything, by having additional supply, we'll have, is that your bell or their bell? We'll have access to, our neighbors will have access to affordable power. When I came in, I picked up your strategic plan, and I was looking at it, and I just found Goal 3.1, strengthen resiliency policies and planning projects, and 3.1.3, pursue projects and studies that ensure communities are sustainable, livable, and healthy. The alternative energy plan helps us with sustainability. As far as healthy, being adjacent to a Superfund site is clearly not healthy. Please be consistent with your plan and reject this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me check a couple names here. I got a couple people who signed up, and I'm not sure if it's for this one. I have Alexis Lopez signed up, and they didn't say for what. Is Alexis Lopez in here? All right, going once, going twice. And Lisa Brown Fox signed up and didn't say. You want to check the other room, David? Okay. Okay. Are you Lisa Brown Fox? Okay. Okay. All right. Then next up for this one, we're going to have Renee Madison, or I think it's Madison. And after her is going to be, ooh, I don't know. Looks like it might be it. Dan Keenan for sure. So that might be the other room. You can get the other room over here. You can get Dan Keenan over here and Josie Gentry. We'll be up after. You can go ahead, Ms. Madison.
Excuse me, my name is Renee Madison. First, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening regarding CPA 2315. On December 11th, 2024, an email was sent by Mr. Brent Jones, Tetra Tech Environmental Consultants, Pacific Northwest Manager, Operations Manager for Remediation and Toxic Waste Sites, to EPA Region 4, Miss Portia McCurdy, the Remedial Project Manager, Superfund and Emergency Management Division. She is collaborating with her team and the FDEP and Hillsborough County to address concerns sent in Mr. Jones's letter. Mr. Jones performed an exhaustive and comprehensive review of the 1989 Endangerment Assessment Study, where he outlined several areas of high concern that lack critical and current data. Included in his email was the lack of information from 1989 regarding the emerging contaminant 1,4-dioxane, which is a high carcinogenic. In the 2024 water report done by Hillsborough County, it was noted that the contaminant 1,4-dioxane has reached the Floridan aquifer. This aquifer is the drinking water for 10 million people in 5 states. It exists in 3 of the EPA's 31 monitoring wells throughout the institutional controls of 325 acres that make up the 3,000 acres. This is most notable because it's heavier than water and disperses faster than water and disperses horizontally and vertically. When large amounts of soil are moved, groundwater follows in the new undefined directions, allowing an open door for the contaminants to continue to spread. The safety inconsistency here is there's not been a comprehensive assessment study throughout the additional 2,675 acres. It has only been confined inside the 325 institutional control acres. Large data gaps exist. Mr. Jones also outlined the radiological component that exists throughout the 3,000-acre Sydney phosphate strip mine site. Not one comprehensive radionuclide. If I could just do my short conclusion, I would sure appreciate it.
All right, make it quick.
Thank you. On December 12th, Ms. McCurdy responded to Brent with this: we are currently working with our radiation experts and ecological risk assessors to address the outlined concerns. More information will be provided in response once these assessments have been completed. At this time, no response has been received because the assessments have not been able to be completed by Region 4, Ms. McCurdy.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Who do we have here? Josie? Yes, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. I would also like to leave you with some paperwork before I leave, just for you to read up on. My name's Josie Gentry now. I live out in Valrico. And back in December, I contacted Mr. Lubinsky with the federal EPA. If any of you would like to contact him, he will let you know that this property is inconsistent with not just Hillsborough regulations, but the EPA's. Living near an active or former phosphate mine can pose several potential dangers. Now, I know we are talking about commercial properties here today, but I would like to remind every one of you that the EPA recommends that no one spend no more than 3 hours. So what are we going to do? Do 3-hour shifts for employees at this place? All these commercials, they're going to do 3-hour shift because that is what the EPA recommends. And you can contact Mr. Lubinsky with the state of Florida's EPA and their team with the federal EPA. I would like to let you know that there's radiation exposure with this land, heavy metal contamination, groundwater contamination, airborne dust and particles can pollute our entire county and surrounding counties. Sinkholes and ground instability. We already have sinkholes opening up in Valrico. As a matter of fact, right here at Christmas, Nature's Way opened up a huge sinkhole right in the middle of a main way that there's only a few ways in and out of over there in Valrico. I'm pretty sure most of you know exactly what subdivision I'm talking about. Residual waste, which is phosphate mining, generates waste materials including phosphogypsum, radioactive byproduct, and as improperly managed, waste can remain hazardous for decades. The Mosaic has been selling its phosphate mines and lands for decades, poisoning our people. Now it's also put in to inject its toxic gypsum water into our phosphate or into our aquifers. It's right below the aquifer is what they're saying. I don't know about you, but I don't have much faith in the Mosaic and their safety precautions. I have the letter that I wrote to the EPA along with our commissioners informing them about the dangers of not only the Sydney mine or the Sydney-Dover sludge that they're fixing to develop, but also the injection mine. So are we going to continue to let them pollute Hillsborough County and cancer clusters popping up everywhere? You want to know why cancer is so bad in Tampa Bay? Look around you, and you're wanting to put people's workplaces, homes, families, and grow food on this property? Let me tell you something. Those Board of County Commissioners, Jay Collins, Michael Owens, they're all involved. Look at the donations. Look at the property history. Christine Miller and Josh Wostel, they were at a gala put on by the Eisenhower Group, the Carltons, and several other developers in this area. So they send their lawyers in here to threaten us if we don't go by their plans. Their plans are inconsistent and pose a serious health risk to our people and our community.
Thank you.
May I leave these with you?
Yes, so you leave them with the clerk over there.
There's 2 different sets here.
Ms. Ornina?
I just really quickly wanted to let, if Penny Martin and Stanley Harris are listening or watching this, that I sent them an email with the correct link information to sign in.
All right. Check with you, David. Dan Keenan didn't want to speak? Check, okay. All right, then we will move on to Chris Gentry. That's probably across the way, Chris Gentry, and I think that's the last, except for these names that I have to check. I guess I'll just start checking these now. Chris McNeil's the applicant. Cliff Davis is a no. What's that? Cammy Corbus, applicant. Shaw G.
Mr. Chair, I do have Penny Martin on the line if you wish to.
Come back to her. Okay, well, in a second, we got an in-person person, then we'll jump back to that. Please go ahead and state your name for the clerk.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Gentry. I am a 14-year-old 7th-generation Floridian. I'm here today because my future and the future of millions of people in my community and state is at risk. The plan to build homes on 3,000 acres of land that's used to be a phosphate mine and now is a toxic Superfund site. This possesses a serious risk to my health and the health of future families in my community. This land holds over 20 million gallons of toxic sludge, and it's been leaking into the Hawthorne aquifer for years. The aquifer gives clean drinking water to Florida and states like Georgia, Louisiana, and Alabama. If this plan moves forward, That water could be poisoned and millions of people, families, just like mine, could get sick. The EPA has said that the land is so dangerous that no one should be exposed to it for more than 3 hours. Yet, they're planning to build homes for families where kids like me would live, play, and grow up. How can that be allowed? The dust from construction alone could carry toxic particles into the air, putting everyone nearby at risk. What's worse is that the people making this decision, our county leaders, have taken over $500,000 in campaign money. From the developers, it feels like they care more about profits than protecting our water, our health, and our lives. This isn't just about community, it's about everyone who depends on clean water to survive. We need your help to stop this. Please stand with us and say no to putting families in harm's way. I worked for 2 summers helping Joshua Wostel get elected myself. And the other young citizens in this county, needless to say, many of us regret our efforts in helping him obtain his commission seat. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Last but not least for in person, before we go back to online people, let me check for Shaw G or Sean G. I'm going to check. Is that you, sir?
Geckner.
Geckner. There you go. Sorry.
My name is Sean Geckner. I'm the president of Copper Ridge Homeowners Association. We are the largest and most proximate community, lying immediately to the west of Dover Road and the site south of the railroad tracks. We've had a significant amount of discussion within the community and with my daughter, who carries a PhD in water and soil sciences, and her betrothed, who is in water and soil enforcement activity in North Florida. In a segue to everything that's already been said, there's a significant amount of concern in disturbing the soil and the leaching of dangerous chemicals, both laterally and up and down within the soil. One of the biggest concerns, of course, has been traffic. When we first moved here from California, I was in Southern California when the whole Aaron Brockovich thing broke loose. That was quite the talk of the town back then. Nobody wants to see that happen again. Traffic is the biggest concern, where people who are not directly affected by this development are concerned. When we first moved here, we were prepared to buy a house in Fishhawk Ranch until we got stuck in the first traffic jam. Dover Road has 2 lanes, one north, one south. In the last 2 months, we have had more power outages from vehicles leaving the roadway and striking telephone poles, knocking power down. There's a very large ditch that lies immediately to the east of Dover Road, and until such time as the ingress and egress to the area is widened, it couldn't possibly carry the amount of cars that even 400 homes or 1,200 homes would carry on Dover Road. Apart from that, the concerns where environmental damage is concerned and the dangers surrounding those are also as important as the additional traffic that's going to be brought to the area. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. All right, now we will jump back online. Do we have Penny Martin?
Penny, can you hear us?
Yes.
Please go ahead. You
I'm
have 3
Penny
minutes.
Martin. I live on Martin. Okay. I'm Penny Martin, and I live on Martin Road right next to this property. The last time this case was reviewed, there were 9 major inconsistencies. The rewording before us does not change the fact that this parcel is not suitable for residential use and/or commercial warehouses. We are dealing with a former phosphate mine with a toxic superfund on it and chemicals of concern. As you know, the EPC weighed in and said, as a result of this land being next to the superfund site, the FDEP and US EPA must be involved before anything gets approved. Over 1,000 residents have signed petitions, HOAs are involved, and many citizens have written into this board. It's getting national attention, and citizens here are highly concerned. It's on the local news, and it's been discussed in residential town halls and on multiple social media platforms. We need you to listen to us. We need to protect our local residents and future families of Florida. Further testing must be done. When homes and a school were built on top of a toxic site in New York called the Love Canal, it was highly regretted later on. The entire community became sick after the company thought that they had cleaned up all the toxins. We refused to be ignored like the folks of Parkersburg, West Virginia, where they were exposed to buried toxins from a Teflon manufacturing plant. I will stand up for my neighbors like the lady from Hinkley, California did to protect her community from chemicals the company said were safe, but left out vital information that negatively impacted an entire town. We won't be misled by our neighbors in Lakeland either. I'm sure you're familiar with the nationally known Drummond case. The families of Flint, Michigan would have a lot to say if they could be with us here today. Our wells in the Florida aquifer have a big stake in this. Extensive testing must be done. My question is, though, what about the federal Superfund redevelopment program? I have never seen the program leaders out in this area. It takes decades to clean up sites like this. There's no documentation online. Where are they? The Superfund sites are cleaned up under the authority of surplus. I haven't seen any involvement of them. Environmental scientists provided input to their concerns about the dust and asbestos in the air would be a major concern as a result of stirring up this land. The radon is already high here. We can't stir it up more without further testing. Wetlands was discussed by county officials that we personally invited out to look at this land. The property is mostly wetland and has never been delineated. In April of 2024, the geologist experts that you hired did confirm the 1,4-dioxane limits were above the allowable limits out there. The ground and the water delineation is required prior to any proposed development. We have had local wells tested recently and also have found high levels of lead, arsenic, and other chemicals of concern. Please leave this land zoned as is and deny this request until all 3,000 acres of land, water, soil, and air have been tested. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. All right. I see Christina Gatewood got on. Hopefully. HTV.
Yes, stand by. Christina, can you hear us?
This is Brady Harris.
Okay, stand by.
Okay, we'll go to Brady Harris then, because he is on the list, strangely. So we'll give him his 3 minutes.
Okay, most people that spoke have already hit on some of the speaking points I had. But I just wanted to bring up that I live beside the little creek that's called Turkey Creek. My property borders it. And it was a small little creek and wasn't never meant for drainage. And there's new culverts back on that property coming from, I imagine, one of the subdivisions. And it's gushing water into the creek. And it has flooded my property out, destroyed one of my mother's trailer. I mean, in other words, if you build anything back there, most of it's wetland. And where's the drainage coming from? I mean, going to. It's going to funnel down Turkey Creek, which funnels into the Alafai River, and which funnels into the Tampa Bay. And USF is doing a study right now trying to figure out how forever chemicals are getting into the bay. Well, the jar, the murky water, that's from my ditch that runs through my pasture into the Turkey Creek. And that comes directly from the berms on the EIP property. And I have radiation levels nearly at 500 in my ditch. And I have grandchildren that play, I have cows that eat. I was born and raised on this property, so there's no telling what I have from being on the property. So if the radiation level is that high in my one ditch, You can imagine what all has flown into or flowed into the Turkey Creek and then the Alibi and into the bay. And they're wondering where the forever chemicals are coming from. This is one source directly. And I cannot dam up my ditch because then I would flood out my neighbors. But y'all do not have no problem approving something that causes flooding to entire communities and single family dwellings. Thank you for your time, and I would ask for you to find this inconvenient.
Thank you.
Or thank you.
All right. All right. Next up, well, last up, we have one that I missed that I'm just going to check over here. The last name for in person, Rose Clementi. Did Rose Clementi sign up for this one? Next one? Okay. Then that was it. So with that, was there anybody else on the line? Let me double check with her. No. With that, I will turn it back over to the applicant for a 3-minute response.
Cami Corbett, Hill Ward and Henderson again. A couple things I want to clear up. The Superfund site is 58 acres. It is not the entire 3,000 acres of the property that's proposed to be developed. That's less than 2% of the site. There was a question about whether or not we were providing energy uses. The original request that we had that staff found inconsistent was a request to be able to allow 30% of the development to proceed without the energy uses. We've removed that part from the request. We will have energy uses concurrent with. And in terms of what's going to be built and what are the specific output requirements, those are contained in the plan development zoning. So that's not for you to analyze or decide. That's something that the board will decide in conjunction with the zoning, and the public will have the input at that time to comment on that. There is no requirement to build an energy plant. These approvals were approved back in 2010 and implemented through the zoning. There is no requirement for an energy plant. And again, so they've asked about changing uses. There's been many references to residential this evening. That's not before you. That will be before you next month, and that will be for you to contemplate, but that is not part of this application. You're not deciding tonight whether there should be development rights on the property. Development rights on the property exist. What you're being asked to evaluate is whether these few minor, more modernizing conditions that we're proposing to allow us to deal with terms that weren't defined in situations that weren't contemplated, that your staff has found consistent. That is what we're asking you to consider this evening, and we would respectfully request that you find it consistent. And here to answer any questions.
Thank you. All right. Now it is to the commissioners for discussion, questions, comments on this item. I'm not seeing a lot of movement from the commissioners. Commissioner Cardenas?
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to step out, but what I'm seeing here is mainly verbiage that has to do with the conjoining of the two properties. Am I correct about this?
Staff, Ms. Weiner? Oh, your mic. Turn on your mic and repeat everything.
Sorry. What I'm seeing here is just verbiage that has to do with the two properties in the context of the language, but not anything that has to do with what can or cannot be done there. Is that correct?
Sornina?
Well, I'll ask Melissa Leinhardt if she'd like to walk through the changes again.
Sure.
That'd probably be helpful.
So there are a few bullets. So I have 6 of them in the staff report. The first one is they added language defining the term ancillary, because that was not in the language previously when it was privately initiated back in 2010. The applicant is proposing to add language that there's when there is more than one owner within a planned development zoning, that the land area for the energy uses can be allocated between those two property owners. They also proposing to add language under 59, policy 59.1, stipulating that there is more than one property owner in the PD zoning, that production output may be allocated between those property owners. The other 3 changes are the ones that I pointed out on my slide that had to do with where uses could go, but the uses that are being proposed are not changing with this application. Again, as Ms. Corbett noted, there is another application, HCCPA 2406, not being heard tonight, not being decided tonight, That will be heard next month, and they are proposing a new use. I will cover that at that time, but for this application, it is still the same uses that were being proposed in 2010. They're just asking for a little bit more space eastward on State Road 60 to accommodate those commercial and industrial uses. The map that I showed you previously, and I can pull that back up if that would be helpful. And they're basically asking for, based on that 1/2 mile extension, the words east and west that were part of that policy, they're just asking to say to the north, to west and east in policy 59.11 number 1, and then they're deleting the words west and along State Road 60 in the same policy, but in the number 4 item. So would you like to see this slide that maybe shows the?
Sure, but I guess my question is, in that additional space, if this would have originally gone through with that additional space, is there like a school in that area, or is there a water or something in that area that they otherwise would maybe have not have approved that usage when that was made at that time? You know what I mean? Is that new piece of property have another factor to it that otherwise would be?
I mean, not that I know of, but I wasn't here in 2010, but I have been here a while. And in 20.
Excuse me, ma'am. We're having a meeting right now. We don't disruptive. Oops, we don't need people to be disruptive. We paid attention to the public. Each of you had your 3 minutes, and no one interrupted you. So let's be respectful to everyone else. Thank you. Keep going, Ms. Leinhardt.
Okay, thank you. So what I was trying to show you before, and I don't know if HTV can show this particular slide, but this is what I was mentioning before, the uses. So right now, the way it was written and the way it's adopted today is this creek is the easternmost boundary of where they can have commercial industrial. They're asking to move that a little bit further eastward, to have some more development flexibility, which will then, as Development Services made in their agency comments, they will need to go back through the plan development process to modify that zoning and where those uses are. This language would need to be in place in order to accommodate those zoning changes, right? So they're asking to go a 1/2 mile eastward of where they're approved today. Now, why Turkey Creek was chosen in 2010, that was a privately initiated amendment. Again, I wasn't here. I'm guessing it was just because it was a very well-known natural boundary that was chosen. So it didn't go all the way to Turkey Creek, which we know Turkey Creek Road has a different character than State Road 60, right? So that is my educated assessment on why that creek was actually chosen as the eastern boundary. They're asking to move that a 1/2 mile eastward.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions or comments, discussion points from the commissioners? I am not seeing any going once, going twice, and I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Anybody? Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to find HCCPA 23-15 consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward on to the County Commissioners.
All right. Commissioner. All right. We have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. A second to that motion of consistency by Commissioner Kona. Are there any questions, comments, or statements from the commissioners before we go ahead and take our vote? Then would all, was that a question? Nope. Oh, then would all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Nay. All right. Motion carries 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 1. Commissioner Kress votes nay. The other 5 of us voted yay. All right, thank you for the information, and we will move on to our next action item. All right, next up we have 2B, HCCPA 24-25, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, 1911 Rebecca Road, and the presenter is Wally Gallard.
Do I go ahead?
Oh, yeah, if you're okay with the...
Sure. Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening. My name is Wally Glart. I am with the Planning Commission staff, and I will be presenting on HCCPA 2425 1911 Rebecca Road. The nature of this request is privately initiated. It is a small-scale amendment The size of the subject site is approximately 2.14 acres, and the applicant is proposing a change from residential 1 to residential 2. The subject site is located within the rural area and is located in northern Hillsborough County and within the limits of the Lutz Community Plan. The subject site is north of Rebecca Road and to the east of Simmons Road. The subject site is presently vacant and contains significant wetlands. The surrounding area can be characterized by rural residential development and large lot subdivisions and environmental features. To the north and west is a single-family home on a larger lot. Immediately to the east are wetlands and natural areas, and to the south there is a residential subdivision. This is a picture looking towards the subject site on Rebecca Road. This is a picture taken from the subject site looking west on Rebecca Road. The photographer is behind. And then this is a picture from the subject site that looks east, and the subject site is to the left. And finally, this is a picture looking south of the subject site on West Lake Drive, and the subject site is behind the photographer. The current adopted future land use category is residential 1. The subject site is surrounded by additional residential 1 future land use categories to the north, east, and west, and directly south there are currently residential 2 future land use categories. The applicant is seeking a proposed change to the current future land use of the subject site from residential 1 to residential 2. The subject site currently under the residential 1 future land use designation allows for a maximum consideration of up to 1 dwelling unit per acre. Currently, since the subject site has an acreage of 2.14, it allows for a maximum consideration of up to 2 dwelling units. Under the proposed change, the residential 2 future land use designation would allow for a maximum consideration of up to 2 dwelling units per acre, and the maximum consideration would increase from 2 dwelling units per gross acre to 4 dwelling units per gross acre on the subject site. Therefore, the proposed amendment will result in an increase in density within the rural area. The maximum residential development potentials do not account for the application of the environmentally sensitive lands credit, which are outlined in FLU Policy 13.3. There were no neighborhood objections. The Environmental Protection Commission provided informational comments regarding significant wetlands on the site. The TPO provided transportation comments. The school district provided no comments, and various departments from Hillsborough County provided informational comments that were taken into consideration when conducting our staff analysis. The proposed request is inconsistent with the following policies and objectives of the comprehensive plan, with FLU Objectives 4 and Policy 4.1, and the Livable Communities element of the Lutz Community Plan. Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Yeah, of course. Here you go. Yeah, you're good.
Good evening. My name's David Wright, president of TSP Companies. I also have with me Addis Fernandez and Alexis Lopez, the property owners, and then Roseanne Clementi, environmental scientist, and David Fuchsen, the civil engineer. I want to first say why we're here tonight. Alex and his wife bought this property. It was represented to them that they could build a house on it. Well, under the comprehensive plan, yes, they can build a house, but under the zoning, they can't. So we do intend to file a zoning application to rezone the property, but we can't do that until we go through this process to change the comprehensive plan designation to Res 2. I won't go through everything that Wally went through, but I think this exhibit's important. This is the future land use map. It does show the subject property, as Wally pointed out. The lots all on the south side of Rebecca Road that are in the existing residential community are all between half-acre and 1-acre lots. Our lot is 2.14 acres. It's got 1.53 acres of wetlands and 0.61 acres of uplands. So I can tell you right now, this lot will never be subdivided. It can't under the code. So this lot will always remain the size it is. So it is consistent with the development pattern of this property under the comprehensive plan. There's also three other locations that where the precedent is set for having more smaller lots in this area. This is the wetland survey of the property. This delineation was approved by EPC. So the wetland density credit would allow this property to be developed up to 4 units per acre. However, the physical characteristics and the configuration of this property, it could never be developed with more than 1 unit per acre because you couldn't fit 2 septic systems on the property. And so, although we could rezone the property to allow 1 unit per acre, anything above that is just not reasonable and would never be approved. So. And it is consistent with the Lutz Community Plan because the community plan references residential enclaves within the Lutz Community Plan east of Dale Mabry Highway. I already showed you those on the future land use map. This would just be an extension of the current Res 2 plan category, just to allow one single unit to be built on this property. And I'd like to invite Mr. Lopez up to also speak.
Good evening. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to present my statement today. My name is Alexis Sebastian Lopez. It's my first time in this kind of stuff, so we were searching for a land to build a retirement home free of homeowner association or CDD. And we found 1911 Rebecca Road by Silo as, quote, the property offers conservation and plenty of room for your future home. Based on that and the information provided by the real estate agent, allegedly, we were allowed to build a single family home in the western upland of the lot. Inspections and surveys showed that everything was fine for building purposes. A pre-construction loan was approved, paying interest only for 2 years on April 23rd of 2023. We closed that day. At the end of 2023, building permits were denied. At that time, we realized that the lot was not buildable. We contacted the Planning Commission staff, and the CPA application was submitted by Mr. David Wright. Newly updated surveys, soil tests, civil engineering, and environmental studies will be presented here today for your evaluation. I would like to thank you, neighbors who support the request, and for those neighbors who has some concerns, I would like to say that the property will have reliable drainage system with no impact in the community water resources, and the new property layout will not cause an impact on the wetland. Chairs and commissioners, my intention is to build our primary family residence home. We respectfully ask for your recommendation of approval. Thank you very much.
That's all we have. We're here for questions and to reply to any rebuttal also. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Didn't have a lot of people sign up in person for this one. Everybody's online. All right. I'll go through the online people for this one. We will start with Chris Paul. Chris Paul on the line?
Yep, I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, my name is Chris Paul. I'm the president of the Cambridge Homeowners Association. Cambridge is the neighborhood immediately north from the subject property. Appreciate the opportunity to speak today. I'm here to explain why we feel the application to amend the future land use designation from Res 1 to Res 2 at the subject property should be found inconsistent, denied. And I think it's important to note that all of my opinions that you'll hear be reinforced by your staff, which they recommend finding this application inconsistent. So first, the proposed amendment violates the policies governing the rural area. The policies are designed to protect low-density residential and agricultural uses, ensuring the area remains free from urban and suburban encroachment. Current rules limit density to 1 dwelling unit per acre. We've all talked about that. Allowing 2 would breach the guidelines and undermine the purpose of the rural area designation. Secondly, I feel this proposal conflicts with the vision set forth in the Lutz Community Plan. Lutz is committed to preserving its semi-rural, low-density character with homes on lot sizes of at least an acre. This amendment, which allows for higher density, would erode the unique identity and sustainability of the Lutz community. Also, very importantly, there's serious environmental constraints on the site. As we heard, more than 70% of the land consists of wetlands, and it is located within a wellhead resource protection zone 1. These factors make development challenging and raise serious environmental concerns, especially since no updated wetland delineation or mitigation plans have been addressed. Infrastructure and service limitations also complicate the application. The site lies outside of the urban service area, meaning it lacks access to county water and wastewater services. Increasing density here would overburden the already troubled septic drainage throughout our community. This was most evident by the affluent contamination of Lake Grant immediately to the south and east that most recently we saw with Hurricanes Helene and Milton. It caused a massive outbreak of invasive and damaging plants. Finally, approving this amendment would set a dangerous precedent for suburban encroachment into the rural area. This could weaken the county's long-term goals of controlled growth and preservation of rural and agricultural area. It is vital to maintain consistency with a comprehensive plan to ensure sustainable development. For these reasons, policy inconsistency, environmental risks, lack of infrastructure, and the precedent it sets, I urge the Commission to uphold the staff's recommendation and find the application inconsistent. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Dan Romsberg.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, for the record, my name is Dan Romsberg. I reside at 1816 Rebecca Road in Lutz. I represent approximately 84 households as president of the Lake Grant Special Dependent District. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Melissa Dickens, staff planner, with the assistance she gave tonight in getting us virtually on. There were some communication problems in getting on. I just want to thank her for that and make note of that. We are basically piggybacking with the Cambridge community of 36 homes. Everything that Chris Paul just called out in regard to this property, we would like to say the same thing. I don't want to repeat it all, but we're adamantly opposed to it just because of the inconsistency. And that's about all I have to say. But again, we're representing 84 households, and Chris is representing 36 households in the area.
Thank you. All right. Next up, David Stedge. Hopefully David S. Hope I'm not mispronouncing that. I'm sorry if I did.
No, can you hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, and appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight on this. I'm here to oppose the amendment change. I've lived in the neighborhood for over 30 years, and I've seen the changes that have occurred in this area and the development that has caused impacts to the stormwater systems in our area and the lakes, and Dan could speak more about the lakes than I could, but I think the change is, number one, inconsistent with Part 3.06 of the flood damage control regulations of the county, and it would be inconsistent to increase the density in this area. Another thing to note is that the size of the upland that's noted for that property incorporates a portion of the property that runs adjacent to Rebecca Road. It's a narrow strip. It's unbuildable. The portion that is the main part of the property that would be buildable is very small, much smaller than the 0.6 acres that's presented in this meeting and then the discussions today. And also to note that the properties that are under 1 acre that were built in this neighborhood were built back in the 1970s primarily. So, these changes to increase the number of houses that could go per acre would be inconsistent with the current development in the area. And that's all I have to say. Thank you for taking my comment.
Thank you. Next up, Jonathan Moore.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before I start, am I able to share my screen after I speak?
I don't know if HTV, is that something that's enabled for participants?
I believe he could share it if the board allows, but as long as he's logged into WebEx on his laptop or computer, he should be able to do it.
I am. You see if it seems to will let me, but maybe let me start in the interest of time, and then I'll try to hit this button.
Yeah, go ahead and speak it out.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I reside at 17608 Cambridge Point Drive. I'm an adjacent property owner to the Cypress wetlands connected to this site and a part of this application. I'm also a Florida registered architect. My license is AR 93150. I've got extensive experience in master planning and rezoning residential and commercial properties in Hillsborough County before the Planning Commission. And I think I bring a professional perspective to why this application should be found inconsistent and denied. I'm generally pro-development, and the owner has been very kind in having neighborhood meetings and communicating. I am in favor of growth, but to increase the density of this particular piece will impact the long-term flow of water and potential further the contamination of Lake Brant. This lot was never designed to have a house on it. Your staff points out in the report that the amendment violates rural area policies designed to protect low-density residential uses. Allowing 2 dwelling units per acre would breach the comp plan's guidelines, which your staff says. The change really undermines the intent of the rural area designation to prevent suburban sprawl. Staff describes the Lutz Community Plan, which explicitly prioritizes preserving the area's semi-rural character with homes on 1 acre lots. This amendment enabling higher density development threatens the unique identity and sustainability of the community. We've got huge environmental concerns. 70% of this site is wetlands and falls within a wellhead resource protection zone 1, raising huge risks. We have seen no updated wetland delineations or mitigation plans. The past few years, we've seen horrible floodwaters. Some of those floodwaters stranded us in our neighborhood for days because of 8 inches of water on Rebecca Road. The upland area of this property is really an important relief valve to the wetlands, and water from all around flows through it. Adding fill to accommodate a new residence would drastically change how water moves through the community. This lot was never designed to have a house on it. The site lies outside the urban service area. Approving this amendment would set a very dangerous precedent as well. I think with the policy violations, the environmental risks, the infrastructure limitations, and the precedents, I urge Commission to find this inconsistent and deny this request. The Realtor that sold this property did not disclose to the buyer the constraints and inability to build a home with the current zoning. Should they have known this, they probably
Thank you,
would not
sir.
have
That's it. We got to wrap it up.
Okay, thank you. Can I?
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Victoria Moore.
Good evening.
Hello?
Victoria, you cut off. Can you hear us? She's unmuted, but hang on.
Hello.
There you go. We can hear you.
Hi. My name is Victoria Moore. I reside at 17608 Cambridge Point Drive. My property backs up to the in question. I just have a short thing to say. I feel like this is against policy, the environmental risks, the lack of infrastructure, and the precedents it sets for our community. And I urge the commission to uphold staff's recommendation and find this application inconsistent. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And one more online. Patrick, did I get Patrick Sullivan? Patrick Sullivan. There's Patrick Sullivan on the line.
Patrick is not on the line.
Okay. We will go to the in-person people, and I will start with Ron Kimball. Is Ron Kimball? Or K, or Ron R, or K? No? All right. Once going twice. We will move on to Angelo Ferlita. Angelo Ferlita. Going once. Going twice. All right. Then we will try David F.
Present, but I'm with the applicant.
Oh. Oh, okay. Who do we have here?
Ron Kimball.
Oh, come on, please.
Apologies. Good evening, and thanks again for the opportunity for us to speak on this matter and provide feedback. My name is Ronald Kimball, and I'm speaking as one of the adjacent property owners that live in the Cambridge community. I'd like to add my support to the stance of both the Nancy Rebecca associations as well as the Cambridge Homeowners Associations, which are also backed by your own staff's findings on the future land use change and finding that the application is inconsistent. We've lived in Cambridge for approximately 26 years now, and we're particularly concerned about anything that could upset the delicate balance of the environment and the drainage systems that flow through there. As one of the other neighbors noted, we've had multiple issues over the last few years with drainage straining us multiple times within the neighborhood because we couldn't get out, particularly this past season. And that's only gotten worse with the advent of new developments like Ladera and others in the surrounding area. So that, along with the inconsistencies and the infrastructure risks and your own staff recommendations, I'd urge you to find this plan inconsistent. I'd also like to offer my support for the property owners. I don't know if they were misled or if they just didn't pay attention, but it should have been obvious by the size and shape of that property that it wasn't buildable, and they should have been warned. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is that Mr. Ferlita back there? Yes. Please come on down.
Hello. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a resident of the Cambridge community at 804 Brantenburg Way, and it is adjoined to the property of the person who has the Rebecca property. That property is very difficult to work with, and I know that that has been stated here over and over. Your report from your staff analysis is accurate. It's a semi-rural area with not much room in that particular area for us to develop a house or anything else. What's most important in that area is the wetlands. And that wetland is strikingly important in terms of keeping everyone else dry. That water filters into that area and eventually fills into Lake Branch. And any changes to that could create serious problems for anyone who lives in that neighborhood in terms of water problems. It's been described to you that we have had water flooding, especially in the last hurricane, where we were caught out of not being able to get in our house for 5 days. And anything that would worsen that situation, and this is a potential for this home to be built, and changing to Res 2, the way I read it, determines that possibly even some of that wetlands can be changed. I know that there's a lot of steps in between. Nonetheless, I would not want any of that possibility to even happen, so Res 1 is the place for it. I agree with your staff analysis, and that it is inconsistent, and I suggest that everyone vote against this request. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Angelo Ferlita.
Thank you.
All right. And I believe that was all we had signed up virtually or in person. So not seeing anybody jump up, I'll turn it back over to the applicant for a 3-minute response.
Thank you. I'm very limited on what I can say about what can be built on the property, so I won't go there. But I would like to invite David Fuchs and the engineer up to talk about the fact that any drainage impacts.
Hi, my name is David Fuchsen with Fuchsen Engineering. There's a couple things we've done to try to address the drainage impacts. The Rebecca Road doesn't have ditches on either side. On the south side, there's a piping system that directs water eastward. On the north side, which is the subject property, there's a very slight swale. And actually, once the drainage heads eastward towards the property, it actually goes across the property. It does not stay within county right-of-way. We were sensitive to that issue, and we have shown on our plan to pipe that drainage through an 18-inch pipe and into the wetland. So we will not be blocking the drainage that's currently traveling on the north side of Rebecca. The project is not, the developable portion of the property is not within the 100-year floodplain. And we don't anticipate any impacts at all to the 100-year floodplain with this house construction. That's all I have to say at this point. Any questions?
Give it back over to the applicant, see if he had anything.
Thanks, David.
Remainder of your time.
Also, since it was brought up, Mr. Lopez has spent quite a bit of money working on this property over the past 2 years. Because this was continued, he went ahead and spent the money on a site plan. So we can build a house on the upland. We know that for a fact, and within all of the codes in Hillsborough County. Lastly, we do have an updated wetland delineation. I'm going to submit it into the record now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Over to the planning commissioners for discussions, questions. I see Commissioner Cardenas lit up.
Yeah, I guess maybe my questions are maybe for the engineer. Not really sure exactly which way this is going to come across, but I guess my thought is the property is the way that it is. There's nothing really helping the drainage at this time. I'm wondering with what will go in when, to be able to build the house, is that actually going to help? Because now there's going to be something directing water a little bit more than what it was before.
It's not going to help, but again, we will not be placing fill within the 100-year floodplain. And secondly, any regulations regarding house construction adjacent to wetlands will be complied with. So it's not going to make it better, but it should not make it any worse.
All right. Commissioner Roy.
I think this question's for Melissa or the planner. Can the property be divided into 1-acre lots and he can build on the 1-acre lot and not change the land use?
So I would have to assume that they vetted that option through development services and that did not comply with the zoning, or else or a rezoning would not have resolved their situation. I think part of the issue is that they don't have an acre, they don't have the amount of uplands that they need.
Because I was noticing that there are other parcels in that area that are in the wetland and are less than an acre, as I was looking at the property appraiser map.
If staff has additional information, go for it.
I don't have additional information necessarily. For the record, Melissa Leinhard, Planning Commission staff, but I saw the same images, and I also noticed the smaller lot sizes, but my guess is that those just pre-exist the future land use map, and when those designations were put in place, they were put in place to recognize them. But our language under Objective 4 regarding the rural areas is no density increases in the rural area unless you're already recognized as a rural community or a suburban enclave. So generally speaking, density increases in the rural area are not supported by planning, or by the comprehensive plan policy direction.
Would that be a density increase if they're keeping the same land use?
I hear what you're saying, but with a map amendment, there are no conditions attached to it. There are no limitations. Once you change the future land use map, it is changed in perpetuity until it's changed again, or if it's not changed again, then it's just, you know, it is the designation remains. So if they're asking for a change from residential 1 to residential 2, yes, we have to look at it as a density increase, because the plan amendments are not a site development issue. We're not going through a rezoning right now with conditions. So the nuances are really picked up later in the process. Right now, we're just looking at, there's actually a note in the table, I was just looking at the staff report, that like the wetland density credit is not accounted for in the table. It's just the same thing like when we review non-residential uses, and whether it meets CLC or not, commercial locational criteria, is not necessarily something that we delve into and spend a lot of time on, because again, we're kind of zoomed out at the comprehensive plan level, and we're not going through the rezoning process, which is when those things would be looked at. So going from residential 1 to residential 2 is a density increase, is what I was just saying.
But I'm saying he wouldn't do that. He would keep the land use the same and just go through a lot split.
So perhaps the applicant would like to address why they have not done that, because clearly they've been in this process for a long time. I think they exhausted those options. Yeah.
The issue that would require the rezoning is it's currently zoned ASC 1. ASC 1 allows for only 20% of the wetland credit to be applied to the density. So it would fall 0.01 acres less than 1 acre. And so therefore we would be required to rezone the property. And that's really what we're asking for.
All right, Commissioner Coma.
Yeah, I understand the challenges of the homeowner, and I also understand the challenges of the residents. There was a question that people were mentioning that there's no infrastructure there. Can we go in a little bit more detail? What does that mean, there's no infrastructure? I keep hearing, does that mean there's no water, or what's the, when people were complaining that there's no infrastructure on the site and there's environmental concerns?
I'm not sure specifically, but in the rural area, they would be on well and septic tanks, and the septic tank requires at least a half acre usually in size, though depending on the wellhead protection area, sometimes that's a larger size that's needed.
So, yeah, so my question is, the houses around it, they're all on septic as well, correct?
They should be.
Yes, they should
Okay,
be, yeah.
so the infrastructure isn't really the issue there, it's just the zoning for the size of the property.
Right, the rural acre, there's not
Okay.
an intent to serve it with public water and sewer,
Okay,
so that's a
okay.
safe assumption.
Okay,
yes.
thanks.
All right. Any other questions, Commissioner Cardenas?
As an RS, as a Res 2, considering the kind of the difficulty with the property because of the wetlands, what would they be able to put on there if it did go Res 2?
So according to the staff report, again, we look at the maximum potential because we're not ultimately any impact to wetlands, and any mitigation of wetland impacts is handled through the Environmental Protection Commission through a separate process. And that may or may not change, yeah, so, but based on the acreage of their property, they would be allowed to go from 2 units to 4 units overall. Whether they're actually able to yield all of that is a different question that would occur once the EPC has weighed in, and it sounds like the applicant has received a delineation, but, you know, there's nothing to prevent that from being reconsidered for a mitigation.
Any other questions, thoughts, discussion items from the commissioners? Nobody seems to be moving, so then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Buyers regret and need to make sure you check all your building options before you buy land. I'm going to go ahead and move that we find HCCPA 24-25 inconsistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward on to the county commissioners.
All right.
Second motion.
All right, we have a motion of inconsistency finding by Commissioner Buzza, second to that motion by Commissioner Bowden. Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners before we go ahead and take our vote? Then would all signify their agreement with that inconsistency finding by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The inconsistency carries unanimously. All right. Thank you, everybody, for the information. Thank you to the citizens for the information. We will move on to our next agenda item, 2C, HCCPA 24-32 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Planned Environmental Community Policy 47.18, and the presenter is Melissa Leinhardt.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Again, Melissa Leinhardt with your Planning Commission staff. I'm here to talk about HCCPA 24-32, which is regarding the Planned Environmental Community 1/2 Future Land Use category. This is a privately initiated text amendment that applies to generally 1,954 acres of land that is west of US Highway 301 and just south of the Pasco County border. This is a text amendment to the future land use element policy 47.18 under objective 47, and essentially the request is to remove this policy in its entirety. This item is part of the October cycle of plan amendments. While this is a text amendment, the text does apply to one geographical area of unincorporated county, as I mentioned. The Planned Environmental Community 1/2 is the category name. It's a future land use category that is located in the northern portion of the county, as I mentioned, by the Pasco County border. It's on the west side of US Highway 301. And this category is located in the rural area, and it's not located within the limits of a community plan. The Planned Environmental Community, or PEC, category was proposed and approved through a privately initiated text amendment back in 2005. The effect of the new category was to increase density on properties in the rural area that are served by public water and wastewater in exchange for environmental protection enhancements. I took that language directly from the staff report from 2005, by the way. As far as the impacts are concerned, adopted policy 47.18 outlines that planned developments in this category must provide for public access to portions of a regional resource. Requirements do not mandate a trail access to all portions of the resource, but if the public policy prohibits public entry, access shall be limited to viewing access. And the definition section of the comprehensive plan does define what a regional resource is. It's defined as a large, so a minimum of 1,000 acres, environmentally sensitive and verified, publicly owned park or natural resource area. And the examples that are provided in the definition section are ELAP lands, rivers, lakes, streams, bays. The proposed text amendment includes the deletion of this policy in its entirety, and the applicant cites safety concerns from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. This amendment was transmitted to all the reviewing agencies. There were no objections received. However, revised agency comments were received today from 2 Hillsborough County departments, and you should have received those at your chair this evening. I did revise my slide to reflect those revised changes, but in your backup itself, it has the previous agency comments. Hillsborough County Community and Infrastructure Planning mentioned that they encourage the applicant to explore other options to connect to a regional resource where that is feasible. They also noted that this may include connections to an existing park entry point or a trail connectivity element within a planned development. And they also noted that because the State Park Department has objected to the connection, the removal of the policy is not opposed at this time. And the Office of Emergency Management, also with Hillsborough County, they revised their comments to say that they have no comment regarding this amendment. Planning Commission staff has found the proposed text amendment consistent with objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan as listed on this slide, specifically within the recreation and open space section and the community design component of the future land use element. There's policy direction promoting access to regional resources such as parks and natural areas. However, there are also policies in these sections that emphasize the importance of public safety. Within the environmental and sustainability section, policy direction talks about avoiding impacts to natural resources. Specifically, policy 3.7.5 calls for the minimization of impacts on open spaces, floodplains, and environmental resources. Objective 3.9 focuses on managing natural preserves to ensure a healthy, functioning environment, economy, and quality of life. Objective 5.2 emphasizes the importance of preserving and restoring natural vegetation and wildlife habitats along rivers and primary tributaries. These policies speak to the importance of preserving natural spaces and avoiding impacts on environmental features. In addition, the comprehensive plan also includes more specific language with regard to the Hillsborough River. This site is just north of Hillsborough River State Park. Objective 6.8 of the environmental and sustainability section calls for preserving the rural character of the upper Hillsborough River by discouraging additional development within the river corridor, except for those sites that are improved or developed that are dedicated to passive recreational pursuits. Environmental sustainability section policy 6.8.1 also addresses the upper Hillsborough River corridor by outlining that recreational facilities in this area must be designed to minimize impacts upon wildlife habitat by encouraging less disruptive passive pursuits such as hiking, nature study, fishing, and canoeing. It further states that the buildings may not be constructed within 500 feet of the river's wetlands, and these policies speak to the importance of preserving environmental lands generally, and also how specifically valuable the upper Hillsborough River corridor is to the community at large. The Office of Park Planning with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection has submitted a letter that was submitted by the applicant as part of their application, dated July 11th, 2024, that outlines their support for deleting this requirement from the comprehensive plan. And I'm going to read a little bit from that letter. It says, the Division of Recreation and Parks is in support of deleting this policy from the county comprehensive plan. Development of an overlook in this location would impact the unbroken floodplain forest that currently provides significant ecological, aesthetic, and auditory buffering to the Hillsborough River State Park. Proximity of the proposed overlook to the U.S. Highway 301 bridge also poses concerns over unregulated access to the Hillsborough River State Park located along the south bank of the river. Safe and regulated public viewing access is already provided along a half-mile section of the Hillsborough River within the boundaries of the state park, satisfying the need for interpretive and recreational access. Additional viewing points along the north side of the river near US 301 are not recommended. End of the quote. With the Office of Park Planning citing their concerns in writing, it can be surmised that avoidance of impacts and the focus on public safety in this location takes precedence over public access. Based upon that policy direction that I discussed previously, the implementation of future land use element policy 47.18 would not be in the overall interest of the county, nor would it further the policies of the plan when considered from a holistic and comprehensive perspective. That being said, staff recommends the proposed text amendment 24-32 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. That concludes my presentation, and I'm certainly here if you have any questions.
Is there an applicant presentation?
Do you have one? No, I didn't think so.
Cami Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson this evening. I do not have a separate presentation. I think this one's pretty straightforward. It was something that seemed like a good idea when the plan amendment was coming along, and probably something the public desired, but nobody bothered to ask the park system. And so when we got to implementation and started to implement it, they were like, why are you guys doing this? We really prefer that you not. And so what we did is agreed to file this plan amendment to remove the requirement. And as far as future connections to trails and sidewalks, that'll be addressed during the zoning modification. And respectfully request your approval.
Thank you. All right. We only had one individual sign up for the public comment on this one, and that's Roy M. Oh, okay. Okay. All right. So we had no one sign up for the public comment, so I will turn it over to the commissioners for questions, comments, discussions of this one. Oh, we need Giovanni. We're short. We're short, so I'll tap dance here a little bit. Well, Melissa already does run. Yeah. Oh, sure no one has any questions? No? There he is. All right. Okay. Public comment closed. Then I will turn it over to the commissioners for motions on this one. Anyone? Commissioner Kona.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve HC CPA 2432 comprehensive plan text amendment, plan environmental community policy, find it consistent with the comprehensive plan.
All right, we have a motion of consistency. Commissioner Buzza?
I'll second.
All right, and a second to that motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. So that's a motion consistent by Commissioner Kona, a second to that motion by Commissioner Buzza. Are there any questions, comments from the commissioners before we take our vote? Signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you very much for the information and the presentation. We will move on to our next agenda item, 2D, HCCPA 24-35, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Balm East USA Expansion. Jay, are you going to do a bunch of these together, or are we going to run them one at a time? How's this going to?
Yes, sir. I've got my presentations are together for 35, 36, and then 37, 38.
Okay.
So if it pleases the chair, you can open up multiple.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll do, can I do that, Tracy? Is that allowed? You have to try together, okay. HCCPA 24-35, like I just read. We're also going to do 2E, HCCPA 24-36, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment, Balm East, that goes with the text amendment. So, over to Jay Collins.
All right, so good evening, and thank you for that introduction right there. So, Jay Collins, Planning Commission staff, this is HCCPA 2435. This is a text amendment. This is Balm Road East. This is the Urban Service Extension. This is privately initiated. We are doing a publicly initiated expansion of the urban service boundary right now at the direction of the Board of County Commissioners. This property is within the geography of that. However, this is a private application. They are moving faster than the public application. So again, this is text amendment. This is just under 370 acres, and it is an expansion, and the map amendment is HCCPA 2436. So this basically gives you an overview of where we are to show the relationship on the east side, which is 2435, and what you will see right after this, which is 2437. They are the same applicant. They are right across from each other. Why do we call it east and west? Balm Road is running north-south right there to show the separation of the two. Okay, so let's take a step back and let's talk about process of amendments and where we are. Tonight, this is, from my understanding, July and October cycle that you have for unincorporated Hillsborough County. Tonight, I believe, unless I am wrong, this is your final public hearings that you have, except for one more that will also be the publicly initiated amendment for the comprehensive plan that we have for the future land use today. In December, there was a new future land use that became effective, right? So we're in that stage right now when you're going to start having applications, and somebody's going to have a conversation with you about policy that is in this document, but it's not in this document because you have something that is effective on the right-hand side and something that was effective on the left-hand side that was used at one time. So we are using something that is effective, but it is now no longer effective, right? A little bit confusing, but that is the way that works. So again, amendments are reviewed against the adopted policy at the time of application. This was applied July of 2024, not at the time of the public hearing, right? Objectivity to subjectivity. As of December 2024, a new flu, which we just talked about, is effective in that flu section, was not used in the review of these amendments. So again, what is the impact of it? The impact of it, 370 acres, the minimum connection to water and sewer, and we'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of the differences with the flu here in a minute. Agency comments, we always ask for agency comments. Again, these are just like what we had in Waimama that y'all have already seen. So we received issues, or not issues I should say, but comments from utilities about potable water and wastewater for oversizing the school district, again, current and future capacity within the area, as well as transportation planning. Pretty much the bread and butter of the comments that you would expect in this area. Okay, so the blue line is the current urban service boundary that you have. That blue line showing you to the west, and then the subject site is outlined in pink. One of the things that is current within the policy that you have here within policy 2.2 in the future land use is that an expansion of the urban service area shall be contiguous and adjacent to the existing urban service boundary. That is not. That is about 2 miles as the crow flies to the east of the current urban service boundary. So again, what we just said, again, the amendment process in the background, just to reiterate it, comprehensive plan policy at the time of the application requires the subject site to be contiguous and existing to the urban service area for expansion. With the recent adoption of the updated future land use element, this policy has changed. All right, so again, we can't use the new policy in our deliberation of objectivity. What is the adopted policy today? Subjectivity, something else, subjectivity that we have. But what is new? Policy 1.1.9 looks at unique circumstances. Those unique circumstances are spelled out in the policy of being environmental, right? But again, subjectivity, it allows for other considerations that staff, that the Planning Commission, that the Board of County Commissioners may have about what those unique circumstances are in the future. But the policy that we have today, Future Land Use Policy 2.2, does not allow for that type of subjectivity. It is more objective. It has specificity to say you must be contiguous. And here is, again, that policy that we have. Some of the other policies of a finding of inconsistency with it, again, because you talk about the where we are, utilities. Again, it is interesting. This is a site, we'll talk about it in the map. This site on the east and the site on the west, these are RP2. They are already being serviced with utilities today because they are already approved zonings for RP2, much in a lot of this area is. Again, to further that with the public facilities to serve development, whether it's transportation or the public facilities to serve the development for utilities, or within the Balm Community Plan. This is within the Balm Community Plan, and it has specific language within the Balm Community Plan that talks about maintaining the current urban service location in Balm until such a time as the USA expansion criteria established in the future land use element is demonstrated. So again, that's where we are right now about having some of those conversations. And so with that, the recommendation from Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed text amendment be found inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. That concludes the presentation for 35 and then 36. 36, unincorporated Hillsborough County. This is the map amendment with that. Again, this is privately initiated. It is the same amount of acreage. It is currently designated Residential Plan 2. They are requesting Residential 4. Residential 4 is also the same designation that the Board of County Commissioners has instructed staff for the public amendment for the entire area. This just shows you again where we are in Hillsborough County. This is again in the rural area. It's in the Balm Community Plan. It's also in the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. If we look at, again, where we are, you can see some of the large lot rural development that is to the east of the site. This is an older aerial. They are now platting in this area as well, the area that is outlined in pink. And you can see the area directly to the west. That is the other subject site for the other amendment, where you can see again that they have actually started to build the subdivision in there. You can also see some of the roads that we have. To the north is Balm Riverview Road, Balm Waimama Road, separating north to south, County Road 672, which is directly to the north. The urban service boundary, again, is about 2 miles located to the west. This is the adopted future land use map that we have in the area, residential plan 2. Again, this is pretty much almost as far as the public amendment will actually take us for some of those RP2 changes that we have. You can also see to the south of us, Waimama Village Residential 2, which is the kind of blue-gray that we have. Agricultural Rural 1 to 5 is the green further to the east, the residential plan 2 that we have to the north, and you can also see natural preservation and kind of that green color that we have. Same photo, just showing again with the residential 4 on that site. So existing, again on the site, just over 738 dwelling units under the residential plan 2 as a maximum. The potential effectively doubles that to just over, or I should say just under 1,500 units. The FARs for the two are about the same. However, you do lose in community, you do lose the ability for the community commercial within the planned village concept while increasing that potential density. So again, you do have non-residential uses that are allowed in residential 4 if they meet commercial locational criteria. So let's just go around a little bit and see. This is on the subject site looking north, back at 672 and Balm Waimama Road. That's a new light that's been put in for that area. This subject site, I'm standing in it, looking to the south. So again, you can see some of the development that is occurring out here. Subject site, looking to the south and to the west. Again, day we were out there, quite a bit of movement on the site where they were doing some building. And now we're on Balm Waimama, looking south with the subject site on the left, which would be to the east. On the right-hand side of that, looking to the west, there are some large lot single-family homes that are not a part of the amendment for this amendment or the other amendment. However, they do back up to the other amendment. Agency comments, same as we had on the other one. However, we do also have from Conservation Environmental Lands Management their comments on surface waters and wetlands. Consistency review, again, if a USA expansion is found inconsistent, which would be the first text amendment we had, then the corresponding map amendment is inconsistent if the proposed land use density intensity is not supported within the rural area. We just had a long conversation in the previous public hearing that talked about some of the rural densities that you have. Again, residential 4 is not supported within the rural area, right? You will find residential 4 and you will find other types of land uses out there, but again, most of those predate some of the conversations that we're having right now. So again, the inconsistency with the consistency review, community development, residential 4 would not be compatible. Environmental consideration for clustering within the residential 4. The planned villages for the RP2 in the same boat, the RP2 specifically is set up for that type of development, for the clustering development that you have. Also RP2 being basically the most dense rural category that you have that is widely used, much like the Waimama Village Residential 2. And then finally, again, the Balm Community Plan, which speaks of the rural scale of development in the area unless that area should happen to be the residential plan 2. So again, some of the issues that you have with some of the policies for inconsistency, if this were found inconsistent, again, with the text amendment, finding it inconsistent as you follow through with that logic. And the recommendation, Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. I thank you, and this concludes the presentation for 35 and 36.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Good evening, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson again. We do have a presentation. We're actually going to try to hit all 4 amendments in one presentation out of respect for folks' time because the issues are so similar in all of them. So we'll make the presentation during this particular hearing, and then we'll see what we have for time.
You need to bring it up?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
yeah, that's what I was wondering. Sorry.
Thank you. Good evening, Isabel Albert for the record, 1000 North Ashley Drive. Like Cammie said,
I can't see on that side. It says staff. Look at the two of us, and we're both blind. Applicant should say applicant for 35, 36.
sorry about that. Yeah, like Ms. Corbett said, I have a presentation for all four applications since they are so similar. So what we have here is those two areas that are being requested today for a comprehensive plan amendment and the extension of the utilities, extension of the urban service area line. Around this, as there's some residential developments, also some preserved areas. And this is an important map because although we have to review this, or staff has to review this under the old comprehensive plan, they are currently under review and have applied for changing all of this area in red here. All of this area here and up here, they're extending the urban service area to overlap the RP2 and the WVR2. So effectively, we are in the middle of what's going to be amended to residential 4 with the extension of the urban service area. The utilities have been put in. As you heard earlier, this is a plan development that was approved, and part of that plan development, utilities had to be provided by the developer. And you can see the connection, the water connection here, and the sewer connection. The next slides are really just more detailed up close of where the utilities are going to be going. Stated, this is a plan development. It is approved for residential development, and these are surrounding plan development in the area. This area here is, again, this is the preserved area, but overall this is the area that is also going through a comprehensive plan by the county. Surrounding, there's road networks in place, parks and recs, again, preserved area around us, plus as well some small private parks. The schools are in place, and let's not forget, to the south of that, there is a new school that's opening up soon, just south of Waimama Lake. The fire station, as well as the just south of there, there's some planned developments that are approved for fire stations as well. So this is expanding the urban service area for those two parcels. Now, as you heard, the only reason that this was found inconsistent is because under the old comprehensive plan, we're not adjacent. But in reality, if you look at the new comprehensive plan, they have this policy. Again, this is the old policy that you had to be adjacent. The new policy says if you're not contiguous, there's got to be unique circumstances, and one of them is separation by environmental land. There's existing entitlements, there's existing infrastructure on the site. That is a unique circumstance, as well as the reason why this land is not included here is because that is the preserved land. But if we were to file today, this would be a consistent response from staff. There's numerous policies in here that how we would meet all these. We're consistent with all these policies in the urban service area, supporting policies, the timeline, and then again a list of policies that we have all in here that supports this request. And this brings us to the plan amendment from RP2 to Res 4. Again, this is the area in question. And what we're talking about is, although currently it is approved for 2 units to the acre, the request is to 4 units to the acre, but in reality, it's usually developed at 3 units to the acre because we have to provide, 20% of the land will be used for infrastructure, storms and roads and stuff like that. So reality is we're asking, 738 to 1,100 units for the east side, and for the west side is, 540 units to almost 600 units. Again, these are different policies, and I'm not going to go through them, but they should be in your backup of all the supporting policies. And then last but not least, we have, there's impact fees that are going to be provided or given. There's about, between this one and the next one, it's about, $72 million of impact fees that the county will be receiving. That concludes my presentation, and Cami will finish up. Thank you.
Cami Corbett again. Not to confuse you further, But I think the law requires you to apply the law that's in effect at the time you make your final decision on the matter. I have a memorandum from Mr. Robbins about that. I understand it has been staff's policy to present items in this manner, but it's my opinion that you're legally obligated to follow the new plan policies. I think you've seen them presented. You can consider unique circumstances. There are unique circumstances here where, as Isabel indicated, these properties are already zoned. They already have utilities provided to them. And quite frankly, one of the reasons these are going a little bit faster is because they're in a much more developed state. And in order to be able to ensure that we are able to take advantage of the changes that would be coming, that we needed to make application while we still had the ability to do that. And so that's why these are ahead. The WVR2 amendments that you all recommended and found consistent were all unanimously approved by the board just this last Thursday. So the board seems to be continuing along their policy direction to expand these property or expand RP2 and WVR2 to be within the urban service boundary, and that density would be at the comp plan level established at Res 4. And then the rezonings for all of these properties will have to be amended, and that will be another opportunity for the public to see what the specific impacts of this policy are. Again, we normally develop at least 3 units to the acre. In this instance, where we're so far along in the development, our opportunities to take full advantage of that Res 4 are really not there the way they were with the WVR. But we do think that the request is consistent, and it's consistent with the direction that the board has been going. And if you were to follow the policies in the effective comprehensive plan, which I think the law requires you to do, you would not have the basis for the inconsistency in staff's report, and we would respectfully request your approval.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know that we had anyone sign up for this one in the public comment, so I will turn it over to one maybe. No, I don't have any on the online sign up. Yeah. So I will turn it over to the commissioners for questions, comments, discussions. Commissioner Connor? Oh, flip a coin.
Are we going to do all 4 of these, or are we going to do the first 2?
We're going to do the first 2, and then we have to do a motion for each of them. And I think we start with the text amendment, which automatically adopts the map amendment, or do we have to do a motion for the map amendment too?
We should do these separately.
Okay.
And insert in them the plan policies that are going to support a finding of consistency, assuming that's the board's direction.
Yeah, I was going to say we haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah,
whoa.
But I just thought I'd get it out on the table.
Throw it out
so
there.
each motion is self-supporting.
Right, okay.
So we'll just go one at a time?
One at a time, yeah.
Okay. So I put my glasses on. I will make a motion
whoa, we're not there yet. We're still discussing. We're still discussing. Yeah. Still have questions or comments. Commissioner Kress. I'm sorry. Commissioner Buzzer. Ladies first.
Yeah, mine will be quick, I think. My question is to Jay. Jay, can you just confirm out loud that staff would find this consistent under the current rules, not the past rules?
Again, staff actually takes it as we have it, so we did not look at this to weigh it against other policies within the new comprehensive plan. I will say this about that. For policy 1.1.9, when you'd have unique circumstances, staff had a lot of conversations about what is a unique circumstance. And I think that is something that you guys as well are about to have, is about unique circumstances. So we had a conversation about policy 1.1.9, but there's a lot of other policies in the new plan that we did not weigh in on.
Okay, thank you.
I don't think you're going to get the cover you're looking for, Commissioner Kress. I think this one's on us. Commissioner Buzzer.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman. Yeah, well, my question is for our board attorneys, so I'll wait till they're done. No, it's all right. Go ahead. To the applicant's point, we are obligated to use the current flu that was adopted by the county commission in January or December. Is that correct?
Yes, I think you should be under the circumstances, because it is the current state of the law or the plan.
Right.
In this case.
Okay.
And the policies that were cited by the applicant in this recent presentation are those policies that would support that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Grass?
Well, then I'll go back to my question. If that's the case, which I believe it is, and staff knew that, why weren't we given a staff evaluation under the current rules as well?
So the direction that I understood was that we should review the application based on the plan that was in effect at the time that the application was made.
Right.
Which was this application was made in July, and that the new plan was not adopted until September. So that is why staff proceeded with the review as they did.
And the new plan was not effective until December. So again, for it to actually legally be a binding document, it was December. We had already gone through a variety of processes within this. But again, you have to have a line somewhere, do you not, for actually looking at policy and for what you should and shouldn't look at. That was why we had the conversation at the beginning, to have the conversation of saying that there are some amendments that you are now receiving that are under the old plan, and next month, in the following month, you'll start to receive some under the new plan. Because there has to be a line somewhere where you leave the old behind and go into the new. You can't use both of them. You can only use one of them. So there has to be a line that is drawn somewhere where you actually leave one and go to the next one.
Right. So let me ask you a question, Tracy. We can actually quote that. What was it, policy 1.1.9, where it talks about, we can actually quote that in our motion when we, because
and I
it's.
think the other policies that we're supporting, which were presented on the screen to you.
Okay.
I assume that you may have, or that Melissa may have, our staff has a copy of that. It could be used for reference.
Thank you. No, that was exactly the question that I was getting up to ask Tracy, was because I wanted to advise you properly as to which policies to use in the motion.
Okay. All right. Are there any more discussion points, questions? Everybody through? All right, then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this one. So we are looking at 24-35 right now, and open it up to motions on HCCPA 24-35. Commissioner Kona.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we find HCCPA 2435 comprehensive text amendment consistent based on Objective 1, Policy 1.1.9, and Policy 2.1.
2.1, all right. Commissioner Buzzer?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Kona, citing Objective 1, Policy 1.1.2, and Policy 2.1, is that right? 1.1.9, sorry. 2.1, okay. And a second to that motion by Commissioner Buzzer, consistency finding. Is that, you want me to repeat it, Commissioner Bowden? I see a Hillsborough. Got it? All right, okay. All right, then, are there any comments or questions before we take our vote? Then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, now we'll open it up for the next one, HCCPA 24-36. I will open it up to motions on the plan map amendment from the commissioners. Commissioner Kona, sorry.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we find HCCPA 2436 comprehensive plan map amendment consistent with Objective 1, Policy 1.1.9, and Policy 2.1.
All right, Commissioner Buzzer?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion of consistency finding, citing all those policies and objectives that Melissa's writing down, and a second to that consistency finding by Commissioner Buzzer. Are there any questions or discussions before we take our vote? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement with the motion by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we will move on to the next two, HCCPA 24-37 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment and HCCPA 24-38 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment for the Balm West USA expansion, and the presenter will be Jay Collins.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Jay Collins, Planning Commission staff. So we've already done the heavy lifting. We already understand where we are and what we're doing, so I'll be able to go through this one a little bit quicker. So this also is privately initiated. This is the same applicant. This is also a text amendment, 272.3 acres for an expansion of the urban service boundary, and it is associated with HCCPA 2438. Same photo that we saw earlier in the other one. We're showing again basically where we are in southern Hillsborough County. Again, same thing. Amendments are reviewed at the against adopted policy at the time of the application. What the impact here is that at a minimum you would have connection to water and sewer coming into the urban service boundary. Again, here we are with the subject site, again showing you where the USA line is currently to the west in blue, and the subject site outlined in pink there. Again, some of the agency comments, same as before, having conversations with public utilities, the school district, as well as community infrastructure planning for transportation in the area. Again, just to reiterate about the application at the time of reviewing it at the time of the application. And the consistency, again, same thing where we have that consistent growth to say that policy 2.2 in the review of the expansion to the urban service area, each of the proposals shall be examined to determine if each of them meet those. Also with that, again, talking about some of the public facilities to serve development in this area, utilities, transportation, again, going back to the comments that we received, and also some of the language from the Balm community plan, again, talking about the expansion of the urban service boundary in this area and the future land use to demonstrate it. Again, this is an area that is within the geography of the board-directed urban service area expansion, which, again, this body will see as a public hearing in February, so just in about a month, about 6 weeks. And the recommendation of that is the Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed text amendment be found inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. That concludes that presentation. Moving on into the next one for unincorporated Hillsborough County Plan Map Amendment for HCCPA 2438. Again, privately initiated, regular map amendment, same acreage as we had with the expansion. This is from residential plan 2 to residential 4. Again, residential 4 is the same land use category that the Board of County Commissioners is directing staff for the public. This just shows you where we are in southern Hillsborough County. It's in the rural area, Balm Community Plan, and the South Shore Area-Wide Systems Plan. Again, showing you a little bit about where we are. Again, we talked about this is an area that is already building in a subdivision. We got some photos of that. Right across the way, what we just had a conversation about is also building into a subdivision. I forgot last time, we'll talk about it this time. To the south is the Tico Solar Farm, directly to the south of where we are here, and you can also see some of the other large lot rural development that we have in the area. This just shows the current adopted future land use map of residential plan 2, Waimama Village Residential 2 directly to the south, and as well as natural preservation directly to the south and south and west of the subject site. This just shows the proposed, showing the residential 4 on the site. And some of the impacts, again, 544 dwelling units as an existing. The potential effectively doubles that to 1,089. The FARs remain the same. You do lose the community commercial use under the residential plan 2 village concept. So here we are showing some of the sites, looking south towards the site from Balm Road. Here we are on the subject site looking to the southeast, and you can see some of the new homes that are being built. On the subject site looking southwest, and on the subject site looking northwest. So again, agency comments, again, same thing, wetlands and surface area from CLIM, as well as from the school district, future and current capacity, community infrastructure planning for transportation, as well as current and future sizing issues for potable water and wastewater from public utilities. Again, the expansion, again, if the USA was found inconsistent, then the map amendment may also be found inconsistent with the proposed land use for the density and intensity. Same conversation as last time. Some of the other consistency reviews are finding it inconsistent based off of that previous thought in that slide. Again, community development, the residential 4 would be an incompatible land use if it was in the rural area. Environmental consideration for clustering in the area, planned villages support that type of clustering, and again, also with the Balm community plan, what we talked about with rural scale development in this area, unless you are that highest adopted future land use, which is the RP2. And with that, the Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you for your time. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Cami Corbett again with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. No additional presentation. Thank you for the support. I think you can find the same unique circumstances with this site as you did on that last amendment. And just maybe as a suggestion, maybe at where you draw the line, maybe after the board's adopted the new policy and it's not yet effective, just a suggestion to start. You may still end up having to offer 2 reports, but it might help the commissioners to understand kind of where things are. There's a possibility that there might be a change by the time it gets to their hearing. But with that, we'd respectfully request your approval.
Thank you.
Ms. Corbett, I assume that you would like the board to have the record reflect that you're incorporating the comments of your previous
thank you,
presentation on the.
Yes, thank you.
All right. We had one individual sign up for this one for 24-37. So I will turn it over to Calvin Turner. If Calvin Turner's in the room.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Calvin Turner, and I live at 6503 Claire Ness Court in Apollo Beach. I own some property that is adjacent to where the development is going to go. And I think that the one I received the letter on was 24-38. Couple of questions that I have, and if it's not appropriate for the board at this time, I apologize for that. My particular property, like I said, backs up to what one of the drawings that I received showed to be like retention ponds from the development. My properties have shallow wells on them. Are there any safeguards going to be put in place so that my wells aren't contaminated by runoff from the development when it settles into the retention ponds?
Sir, you want to keep going? You have 3 minutes to speak. So you should keep, if you have more questions, spit them out.
That's my only question. Is I am concerned about the potential pollution of the shallow wells.
Okay. All right. Thank you. We will give the applicant a 3-minute period to respond.
Cami Corbett again. I would be happy to take the gentleman's name and speak to him. We will be going through another process after this plan amendment process. That would be a rezoning process, and a lot of those details we get into with conditions and things during that time. So we're happy to take his information and speak to him and make sure he stays informed.
Thank you. All right. All right. So I will turn it over to the commissioners now for questions, comments, and discussions on this one. Not seeing a lot of excitement, then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this one. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we find HC CPA 24-37 consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan forward on the County Commission, citing policies 1.119 and 2.1.
All right. So we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza, policy 1.119, policy 2.1. Is there a, Commissioner Bowden, is there a second out there? Commissioner Bowden seconds that consistency finding. Are there any questions, comments, or clarifications from the commissioners before we go ahead and take our vote on this consistency finding? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. I will open it up for motions on 24-38, Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move we find HC CPA 24-38 consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward on the County Commission, citing policies 1.119 and policy 2.1.
All right. We have another motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. there a second out there?
Second.
Commissioner Bowden seconds it. All right. Are there any questions, comments, discussions from the commissioners before we go ahead and take our vote on this one? Not seeing any at this time, then all signify their agreement by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right. Thank you very much for the information, and we will move on and the presentations, and we will move on to our next agenda item 2H, HCCPA 24-40 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment 7812 Causeway Boulevard, and the presenter is Alexis Myers.
Okay, good evening, Commissioners. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2440, located at 7812 Causeway Boulevard. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is small in scale and approximately 8.39 acres. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use category from residential 9 to office commercial 20. This is the general location map. The site is in the urban service area within the limits of the Greater Palm River Community Plan and north of Delaney Creek. Here is the area of the site. It is north of Causeway Boulevard and east of South 78th Street. Heavy industrial uses are currently on the site. Light industrial uses are directly east. Light commercial uses are to the west and south across Causeway Boulevard. And as I mentioned in the last slide, Delaney Creek is just north of the property, right here. Okay, here we have some few photos of the site. This is looking at the subject site from South 78th Street. Here's looking east from South 78th Street to the subject site. Here's looking west from South 78th Street to the subject site. And this is looking southeast from South 78th Street, and the subject site is out of frame to the left. Here's looking onto a parcel to the west of the subject site. The site is currently vacant, and the subject property is out of frame to the right. And this is looking from South 78th Street to a single family use, which is just west of the vacant land. Currently, the future land use of the site is residential 9. Residential 9 allows for the consideration of up to 9 dwelling units per gross acre, or a maximum floor area ratio of 0.50. All non-residential development which exceeds 0.35 FAR must be for office or retail support uses, not retail. This category allows for the consideration of residential, urban scale neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. The applicant is requesting to change the designation to office commercial 20, which allows for the consideration of up to 20 dwelling units per gross acre, or a maximum of 0.75 FAR. The OC20 future land use designation is intended to recognize existing commercial and office centers and provide for future development opportunities. Typical uses under this category include community commercial type uses, office uses, mixed use developments, and compatible residential uses. Next are the impacts. As far as existing conditions, currently under Res 9, the site could consider 75 dwelling units, or either 127,913 square feet of, or I'm sorry, 182,734 square feet of non-residential uses. Under the proposed future land use designation of OC20, the site could consider 167 dwelling units, or either 127,913 square feet, or 274,101 square feet of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the increase of higher residential density and greater commercial intensity, including commercial intensive uses. This proposal has been reviewed by the accommodating agencies, which you can find in your packets under the agency review section. Community and infrastructure planning have concerns with the proposed requests, given past experiences with community members, and that the site is identified in the Greater Palm River, the Greater Palm River Community Plan as a community node. Next is the consistency review. The proposed request is consistent with the following objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. According to Future Land Use Element Policy 1.4, compatibility does not mean the same as, rather refers to the sensitivity of development proposals and maintaining the character of existing development. The OC20 Future Land Use category is located to the south. An increase to OC20 on the subject site would be similar to the Future Land Use category along the south side of Causeway Boulevard. The proposed increase is consistent with Objective 7 and Policy 8.1 as they relate to the future land use map and range of allowable uses for each of the categories. The proposal is also consistent with Objective 16 and its accompanying policies 16.2, 16.3, and 16.10, which require new development to be compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component of the future land use element require new development to recognize the existing community and be designed to relate to and be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. The OC20 future land use category would be accordant with the surrounding neighborhood since there is a since there's already a mix of uses around the subject site. Goal 5A of the Greater Palm River Community Plan seeks to promote and provide for opportunities for well-designed public uses, residential development, business growth, and jobs. Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. And this concludes my presentation for 2440.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Mine. Here it is. Okay. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451, St. Petersburg. This is HCCPA 2440. Your staff's presented this very well. We're in the Greater Palm River Claremelle area, R9 seeking OC20 for 8.39 acres. This is as the property appraiser has it. You'll note that there is buffering to the north, and your staff has reviewed with you intensive industrial type uses that surround the site. Causeway itself, which is the main road it's on, is an arterial 4-lane divided roadway, carries 27,500 vehicles per day. It's designated by the county commissioners as one of the county truck routes and is a state principal arterial roadway. 78th Street, which is the other corner, is an arterial roadway, carries about 16,000 vehicles per day. Your planning commission staff notes the site is surrounded by a mix of uses, light industrial to the east, light industrial to the west. South across Causeway Boulevard are intensive uses. They find the proposed plan amendment to be compatible and consistent. Abutting east is this use. This use is noted here. Abutting northeast is here. Across Causeway Boulevard to the south. Future land use map you've seen as proposed for the site. You'll note OC20 to the south, R20 to the east. And under zoning is very intensive. It's surrounded by commercial intensive or commercial general. CN to the north, which is a controlled CN, and again, a buffer that separates this from any residential to the north. We had one community meeting. 30 persons were noticed for the future land use amendment. We do have a companion zoning on this, which 24 people were noticed. No one came forward in attendance for the community meeting. And with that, I think your staff's presented it quite well, and we're happy to have your consideration and respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We didn't have anyone sign up in the public comment for this one, so I will turn it over to the commissioners for questions, comments, discussions. Not seeing a lot of excitement. I will then close the public comment and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this. Commissioner Kona.
Yeah, motion to find 2440 comprehensive plan map amendment consistent with the comprehensive plan.
All right, Commissioner Buzza?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Kona, a second to that motion by Commissioner Buzza. Are there any questions, comments, statements to be made by the commissioners? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, our next item is 2I. We're almost done. HCCPA 24-41 comprehensive plan map amendment. 1246-2 Brownsbury Road, and the presenter is Tyreek Royal.
Good evening, everyone. Tyreek Royal, Planning Commission staff, and I'll be presenting HCCPA 24-41 at 12462 Brownsbury Road. This request is privately initiated small-scale map amendment with approximately 27.7 acres. The request is to change the future land use designation from AR15 to OC20. The location of the site is the northeastern portion of unincorporated Hillsborough County, located in the Tonota-Sassa Community Plan. This is an area of the site outlined here in pink. It is located north of Brownsbury Road and west of McIntosh Road. Surrounding land uses include agricultural, vacant uses to the north, west, and east, and single-family uses to the south. This is looking away from the site towards McIntosh Road and Brownsbury Road. This is looking towards the site from McIntosh Road and Brownsbury Road. The site is near the tree lines in the back. This is looking towards the site from McIntosh Road and Brownsbury Road. Again, the site is located near the tree lines in the back. The site wasn't accessible, so these were the best photos we could get. The site is in AR15 future land use category. It allows for the consideration of farms, ranches, feedlots, residential uses, rural scale neighborhood commercial, offices, industrial uses related to agriculture, and mining related activities. Commercial uses are subject to locational criteria. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use category from AR15 to OC20. The OC20 allows for consideration of commercial, community commercial types, office uses, mixed use developments, and compatible residential units. Agricultural uses may be permitted pursuant to policies in the agricultural objective area of the future land use element. The change from AR15 to OC20 will allow for an increase in development by allowing significantly higher residential density and greater commercial intensity. The density of one dwelling unit for every 5 gross acres would increase to 20 dwelling units per gross acre. The commercial intensity, including commercial intensive, would increase from a 0.25 FER or a maximum of 301,000 square feet approximately to a 0.75 FER or approximately 904,000 square feet. Anything above 0.35 FER must be for office or residential support uses and not retail. Community infrastructure planning had concerns due to not being able to evaluate if adequate roadway infrastructure would be available. Agribusinesses development has stated this amendment does not fit the rural character of the area, has limited road access, does not allow for agriculture uses once amended, and the comments can be found in the agency review. The proposed request is inconsistent with policy 4.1 regarding the rural area, which will provide areas for long-term agriculture uses and large lot, low-density rural residential uses. Flu Objective 8 and Policy 8.1 regarding character of uses and the type of density and intensity is permitted in this area. The proposal is also inconsistent with Policy 16.2 and 16.3 regarding gradual transition of density intensities, along with the development of uses that can be integrated with adjacent land uses. The proposal is also inconsistent with Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the Community Design Component regarding compatibility with established development. The proposal does not meet the intent of Goal 1, 2, and 3 of the Tonota-Sassa Community Plan, which intends to maintain the rural nature of the Tonota-Sassa area while maintaining a unique character of the area. Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found inconsistent with the goals, objectives, and policy of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. And that concludes my presentation. I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members. Todd Pressman, 202nd Avenue South, number 451 St. Petersburg. This is HCCPA 2441. We're located in the Tonota-Sassa area, showing the outline by the property appraiser, which is actually 2 parcels, comprises 30.32 acres. Net is 27.7 because we've excluded some areas as a buffer. Currently, ag rural seeking OC20. What we started with on this project was excluding 50 feet on the south and on the side to the farm. And as we have worked through the project and working through zoning, and we've had a lot of communication with neighbors, under zoning, we've expanded that, but before you is 50 feet area excluded. So on one side, you have very active farmlands. You have rural residential to the south, Tico to the north, and Castillo is the property owner on the other side. We did notice 26 persons for the future land use, and several people came forward in attendance at that meeting, and we've been working with one particular neighbor on zoning restrictions and conditions which are not under your purview tonight. So I've just one slide here, Mr. Chairman, just primarily for clarification for residents who are watching. I think there's some folks here that under the zoning, which is not legally under your purview, we do have significant restrictions for the use, which include, I won't go into detail, but just what the use is, much larger area that's remained in its natural condition, fencing. Some of those conditions were still under discussions, but I wanted to at least make you just briefly aware of those and for folks who are here today. So as indicated, we increased the buffering, which is a critical element for the site. There are some few net wetlands, as you can see, just really one spot under U.S. Fish and Wildlife. This is the subject site. This is standing at one perimeter. As you can see, it's very dense, natural, forested area. Again, another view of the subject site. So when we were looking at a buffer of 50 feet, that's a very dense, very high, very thick buffer on those two sides. This is the active farm, which is a beautifully placed farm and beautifully operated farm, which, as you can see, is the neighbor on noted as active farmlands on the aerial, and is an active farm. So as you can imagine, an 80-acre farm, it's very busy and active. There's a lot of machinery. There's a lot of heavy equipment, which is what would be one of the potential uses for this site. These are some areas of that activity, which is very intensive. You also note in the area that there are some areas of high-density residential, which is one area, mobile home park, which is abutting on the northeast, and an area, the active farm area, which is highlighted here, which, as I understand it, is a migrant farm residential area. So these are high-dense areas, which are in the abutting area of this site, as you can see. When you look at some of the policies, particularly 16.1 talks about limiting commercial development of residential land use categories to neighborhood scale. We do believe that we are doing that. Some of that is not under your purview, it's under the zoning. Providing required buffer areas and screen devices between unlike uses, which we are clearly doing, and we've made that a part of the application before you by excluding that by legal. Policy 16.10, compatibility is defined by different uses or activities of design which allow them to be located. Well, the active farm area is very intensive, a lot of machinery, a lot of trucks, and those type of heavy uses to run an 80-acre farm in terms of high-scale mass and bulk of structures. And the notice as community plan does note under Policy 3, open space agriculture and rural character is a balance of residential, commercial, and other land uses, which we think this does provide a balance. Objective 12.1 is new development should recognize the existing community, be designed in a way as compatible. And I think it certainly applies much more to the zoning, but in terms of the active uses, when you look at it quickly, it looks like just a pure rural area, but in reality, it is carrying other uses, which are high-density residential in some parts and the active farmlands. So with that, we appreciate your attention, communication, and your consideration, and respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we had a few people sign up for this one. I will start out with, let me start out online then, since there's one online. Natalie King, is that Natalie King? Okay.
Hi, good evening. This is Natalie King.
Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Natalie King, residing at 2910 Pemberton Creek in Stephenville, Florida, 33584. I do first want to say I appreciate Mr. Pressman's work. We have been working extensively together. But zoning aside, I wanted to state clearly on the record that this is still not consistent or compatible with the surrounding community. Although if this were to pass today, we will be working aggressively towards the March zoning hearing to assure those conditions are appropriate. My home is actually on the southern border. My property is contiguous with this property in consideration for tonight. My husband and I have lived there for 7 years, and we selected this beautiful neighborhood to live in because of its rural residential agriculture, community element. There are beautiful water features. We have Baker's Creek, Lake Sonota-Sassa, and numerous ponds, one of which is in my front yard within our community. We are surrounded by wetlands and agricultural farmland, which is exactly why we selected this location for our home. We would like this area to maintain its unique character, and we believe that this property and what is being proposed for the future land use would be inconsistent. The owner is looking to do an ag rural current and changing it to a commercial utilization. And the concern we have is that they're asking to put a drilling company on this property, bringing their heavy equipment in without roads being consistent to support that, beyond the fact that it's just not consistent with the vision of our community. So we would just ask respectfully that you not consider this consistent. And I would like to cite that there is a previous ruling that you all have made on a property back in 2019. It was HCCPA 1904 that you did find inconsistent, and that property was being requested an AR15 to a residential 1. And we believe that this is similarly and actually more egregiously inconsistent with the adopted goals, objectives, and policies that are the Planning Commission's mission. So with that, I just respectfully ask that you find this inconsistent.
Thank you. All right. Now in person, we have Lisa Brown Fox.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Brown Fox, and I represent the active farmlands. My family owns it. My street address is 10070 McIntosh Road. Our property is adjacent and in front of the Bell property. Our family operates a commercial agricultural farm, and this year marks our 47th year in agriculture. The property that's been mentioned is only accessed by an unfinished segment of Brownsbury Road. This is a one-lane dirt road, and it does not allow for vehicles to pass in the opposite direction. Brownsbury Road is a private road owned and maintained by my family. The road is not engineered or designed for weight and volume of commercial vehicles and heavy equipment. The total distance from McIntosh Road to the above-mentioned property is 1/2 of a mile. It is paved with asphalt for 2/10 of the mile, and then 3/10 of the mile is the dirt road. The only ingress and egress to the property is alongside the northern side of our strawberry farm. There is an existing 10-foot easement dating back to October 22nd, 1965. Commercial vehicles would increase the burden and/or materially enlarge the easement. By changing the rezoning from residential to commercial, it would be changing the purpose of the original easement. The excess dust created by commercial vehicles and increased vehicular traffic could cause extensive damage to our strawberry plants and fruit. Dust can coat the surface of the leaves, block the pores, and deprive them of the sunlight that they need to create the fruit, and it would stunt the growth. The plants would then become frail and susceptible to disease. And one that's most important to me is the increased commercial of the vehicular and commercial traffic running beside our employees' housing complex could put significant risk to our employees' children as they walk to and from their bus stops, especially in the early morning, and put them at risk during their school time, after school playtime, and on weekends. And currently I have 27 school-aged children from kindergarten to high school and one child that has special needs and disability. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, we have Clifford Davis.
Good evening. My name is Cliff Davis. We own approximately 38 acres, which abuts or is actually catty corner to this property. The private road that Ms. Fox just spoke of, we own the other half of that. So on the survey we did supply electronically to your committee is half owned by the Fox residents and then by us. So the ingress and egress of this property goes directly through our portion of the road, which again is cared for by their farm. So to call this a dirt road is, I think, a stretch. It's a totally a farm road. It's essentially sand. Even on a hard rain, a two-wheel drive car can get stuck on this road. The planned easement was given in 1965, was obviously for residential or agricultural. This is a commercial use across private property through an easement that was given for 10 feet, which obviously does not support. This gentleman does own several drilling companies, and on his websites it demonstrates tractor trailer size vehicles carrying supplies and drilling equipment, and he has explained that that's what he plans to put on this property. The other portion is much of the other stuff that the other people have said. It does abut single-family homes with large lots. They have 2 to 3 acre lots. It directly abuts it. These people buy these houses way out there because they want the rural safety. That's why we bought this. We wanted the lack of industrial noise, which is the entire reason we bought these 40 acres just a few years ago. The other portion I do want to mention is that Brownsbury Road, it is half paved and half dirt. The paved portion has multiple single-family homes with large lots, and then it also has these migrant families that live there. Again, there's a bus stop there. This is not an industrial road. So it is a residential road with multiple houses on it, again, that people purchase to be in seclusion and be in rural homes. And none of this is really consistent with the plan for office, commercial, and heavy industrial equipment. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That was it for the public comment, so I will turn it back over to the applicant. 3-minute period for response.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members, and comments from the public. I do want to clarify one element or one item about abutting single-family homes to the south. As I've indicated to you, we've included a buffer in the legal and the application before you. So there is a 50-foot buffer to remain natural on that side. In regard to transportation elements, there are some transportation issues. We have a transportation consultant who's very well versed with these issues. Those are issues that we're looking at to work with. We are looking at a number of different options. So we are working in a number of different directions to address those issues. I will say again that I think it's very easy to just look very quickly at this area and say it's rural, but the reality is that there are a few non-rural uses that are very active. We believe that we can be compatible with them, and part of our application submitted to you does reflect that. We appreciate your attention, appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I will open, do you look like you have something to say, Ms. Zornita?
I just wanted to add one piece of information for you all, that that farm worker housing is allowed within the rural area at a higher density. They're actually given a density conversion factor. I think it's 8 housing units for every 1 unit that's allowed to incentivize that type of use close to active agricultural.
All right. Over to the commissioners for discussions, questions, comments, thoughts on this one. Not seeing a lot of movement, so I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Anyone? Commissioner Buzzard, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we find HCCPA 24-41, 12462 Brownsbury Road, inconsistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, and forward on to the County Commission.
All right, Commissioner.
Second motion.
All right, we have a motion of inconsistency by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that inconsistency by Commissioner Bowden. Are any questions from the commissioners, comments before we take our vote? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you for the information. Thank you for your time. We'll move on to our last item of business, item 2J, HCCPA 24-42 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment 2212 South 78th Street, and the presenter is Alexis Myers.
Hey, good evening again, Commissioners. Alexis Myers, Planning Commission staff. I'm here to present HCCPA 2442, located at 2212 South 78th Street. This is a privately initiated map amendment that is small in scale and approximately 2.29 acres. The applicant is requesting to change the future land use category from residential 9 to residential 16. This is the general location map. The site is in the urban service area within the limits of the, within the limits of the Greater Primavera Community Plan. Here is the area of the site. The site is located east of South 78th Street and north of South 24th Street. Vacant land and light commercial uses are currently on the site. Light commercial uses are also directly south. Single-family uses extend to the north, east, and west. And public, quasi-public institution uses are to the west across South 78th Street. Here are some photos of the site. This is looking south from South 78th Street to the subject site. This is looking at the subject site from South 78th Street. This is looking northwest from South 78th Street. The subject site is out of frame to the right. And this is looking southwest from South 78th Street. The subject site is out of frame to the left. And here's looking east of the subject site. And this is looking at the light commercial uses that are currently on the subject site. The car wash is to the right and the air vacuum pumps are to the left. Currently, the future land use of the site is residential 9. Residential 9 allows for the consideration of up to 9 dwelling units per gross acre, or maximum floor area ratio of 0.50. All non-residential development, which exceeds 0.35 FAR, must be for office or residential support uses, not retail. This category allows for the consideration of residential, urban scale, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. Other future land use categories shown in this map include office commercial 20, residential 6, and residential 20. The applicant is requesting to change the designation to residential 16, which allows for the consideration of up to 16 dwelling units per gross acre, or 0.50 FAR. All non-residential uses, development which exceeds 0.35 FAR must be for office or residential support uses, not retail. Typical uses under this category include residential, urban scale commercial, neighborhood commercial, office uses, multi-purpose projects, and mixed-use development. Non-residential uses shall meet established locational criteria for a specific land use. Next are the impacts. As far as existing conditions, currently under Res 9, the site could consider 20 dwelling units, or either 34,913 square feet or 49,876 square feet of non-residential uses. Under the proposed future land use designation of Res 16, the site could consider 167 dwelling units, or the same amount of square footage of non-residential uses. The proposed amendment will result in the increase of higher residential density. This proposal has been reviewed by the commenting agencies, which you can find in your packet under the agency review section. Community and infrastructure planning have concerns with the proposed request, given past experiences with community members, and that the site is identified in the Greater Primavera Community Plan as a mixed-use corridor. Next is the consistency review. The proposed request is consistent with the following objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. According to Future Land Use Element Policy 1.4, compatibility does not mean the same as, rather refers to the sensitivity of development proposals in maintaining the character of existing development. And an increase to Res 16 on the subject side would be similar to the future land use categories in a manner that is compatible with the surrounding areas with the future land use designation of Res 9. The proposed increase is also consistent with Objective 7 and Policy 8.1 as they relate to the future land use map and range of allowable uses for each of the category. The proposal is also consistent with Objective 16 and Policy 16.2, 16.3, and 16.10, which require new development to be compatible to the surrounding neighborhood. Goal 12 and Objective 12-1 of the community design component of the future land use element require new development to recognize the existing community and be designed to relate and be compatible with the predominant character of the surrounding area. The Res 16 future land use category would be according with the surrounding neighborhood as it is made up of single-family uses. Goal 5A of the Greater Palmerville Community Plan seeks to promote and provide for opportunities for well-designed public uses, residential development, business growth, and jobs. Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. And this concludes my presentation for HC CPA 2442.
Thank you. Does the applicant have a presentation?
Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, board members. Todd Pressman, 200 2nd Avenue South, number 451 in St. Petersburg. This is HCCPA 2442. We're located in the greater Palm River Claremelle area, as indicated by the property appraiser. 2 parcels, 2.24 acres, R9 seeking R16. You'll see the surrounding uses are vacant to the north with a convenience store. Cross street is a church. And a church to the south and a single family further to the south. You'll note the car wash is part of the smaller parcel of the project. To the north is business office zoning BPO. You'll see that there's natural buffering on the rear part. Under zoning, as I indicated, BPO to the north, CN commercial neighborhood abutting on the north, and the site is a PD as the 2 parcels are shown. Current entitlements under zoning is a car wash with 4 bays and auxiliary uses as CN, and the BPO was part of the PD but not part of this project. The PD was more broad than what's coming through now and was at 2 stories. So the PD was composed of the areas indicated, and you can see the uses as your staff has showed you as well, which is the funk use on the property currently, abutting residential. And abutting north, this is the C-store. Planning Commission staff notes that it is compatible with surrounding areas, the density is comparable, and that the increased R16 as subject site would be similar to the categories in that manner. We have noticed a large number of people, 150 persons noticed, and 1 HOA. Had 3 individuals who attended at the community meeting. I checked the record this evening, and there were no letters or emails that I saw in the file. So with your staff review and considering the uses in the immediate area, we appreciate your consideration. Respectfully ask for your support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we didn't have anyone sign up for the public comment on this one, so I will turn it over to the commissioners for questions, comments, discussions. Not seeing a lot of excitement, I will then close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners. Commissioner Kona.
Motion to find HCCPA 2442 Comprehensive Plan Map Amendment. What's the word I'm looking for? Consistent with the comprehensive plan. Sorry.
A long night.
Commissioner Buzza.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion of consistency finding from Commissioner Kona, a second to that motion by Commissioner Buzza. Are there any questions, clarifications from commissioners? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their agreement by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, thank you. Have a good night. That was our last agenda item, so at 8:33, this meeting is adjourned. Good night.